Hello and happy JSB Cast Sundays. I'm sure you guys have been marking on your calendar. It's me, your host, Pinoy Grigio, joined by two of my favorite people. We're online today because it is more convenient, but hopefully Jenny's a little sad about it. Hopefully we'll do more like in-person stuff soon as we get better with it going down the line. So yeah, as I said, I am joined by Jenny on this online day. Tiger Lily, she says hello, and then Rob, aka Zen. How's it going, Rob?
It's going all right. A little tired, but I'm here, ready to talk about a pretty good show.
Yeah, me too.
Right show.
Me too. Like when I look Jenny's excitement, which is such a different feeling from Noragami.
This is the most excited I've ever seen Jenny on this show.
It's awesome because, like, I remember the ending of the last episode and Rob was like, I don't think you even hyped it up in any way, shape, or form. I think I was just like, hey, Rob, so what anime are we doing? And he's like, yeah, we're going to do Paranoia Agent. And I was like, it was just like, all right, then, because I knew what was coming. Like, Paranoia Agent is just so good. It is, even though I didn't include it in, like, when we, when we first started this podcast, I didn't include it in my top 4. It's very, I wouldn't be surprised if it's my, like, number 5.
Yeah.
Easily top 10. If I was being weirdly objective about it, probably, like, in the discussion for best anime of all time. I think it's really fantastic. And just one of the seminal works of Satoshi Kon. So, like, I don't know, I was rather excited to get to this point. Yeah. But too bad for all of you. We have to wait for that because I have to ask you guys how your day's been and how and the other stuff that you've been doing. We have to save the best for last.
Listen, blah blah blah. We're good. Blah blah blah. We watch stuff. Blah blah blah. All right. Paranoia Agent.
All right. Moving on. Next thing.
We have to get to.
Okay, so my favorite character was.
No. We have to have the appetizer before we get to the main course. Oh, there goes Jenny. So, I don't know. So, Rob's obviously, like, a little tired. Are you doing okay today, Jenny? Are you, like, excited? It seems like you're excited. Your field on oysters.
Oh, is that what's doing it?
I love that. Yeah. Starting with you, Jenny, have you been watching anything that's interesting or consuming any media that's fascinating?
So I'm a big fan of animes that are short. Like they just know when they're done.
Yeah.
They don't drag it on. And so I feel like I flew through this, right? I texted you guys pretty much like, hey guys, I already finished my homework.
Yeah.
So we finished really early and I actually ended up starting a show, Vox Machina.
What's Vox Machina?
Oh, have you guys heard of it?
No.
Rob, I'm looking at your face.
One.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think
it sounds anime though.
It's not really, actually. It's an Amazon original based off of the Critical Role, one of their campaigns that they had. We're pretty sure it's based off of Curse of Strahd, which is one of the hardest campaigns you can do. There's just like a lot of dying really early on, like actually the entire time. It's merciless, and that's kind of how the show is. So it's great. It is extremely graphic, very much in line of like Invincible level of graphic.
Oh, Invincible, okay.
Yeah.
About it.
So very, very gory, very graphic. I am shocked whenever I look at the top rating in the top left, and it's like 18 plus or 16 plus. I'm like, no fucking way. But it's a fantastic show. Characters are really fun. I'm a big fan of D&D, so this was just right up my alley. But I also flew through that, so I finished season 1, which had 12 episodes.
Are they like 30-minute episodes or hour?
22 minutes.
22.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, that's real quick.
Very digestible. And once you're watching, it is very fast paced. So you basically can close a whole saga in like 1-2 episodes and go on to the next big bad.
Mhm.
The chaotic nature of D&D is very prevalent in this show. So while
Interesting.
you may develop this with your group and you go, it's going to follow a formula, this is how we're going to do it. D&D makes you fail that a lot. It's like when we play Solasta,
Mhm.
we roll. We're just like, all right, here's going to be our plan. All right, you go first, and then you're going to go next, and you are going to hit them first with their arrow. You will fucking miss.
Does not always work out the way we think it
And
will.
everyone is revealed, and we're like, oh shit, we lost all of our stealth points.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That was this show. So there's like a really funny thing where it just breaks like what you were planning, what Hollywood I guess would have formulated as, all right, these guys now know what they're doing. All right, they're gonna actually sneak in and do this right. No, actually, one guy's gonna go ahead and start raging because he gets
Mhm.
triggered, and he's just gonna storm through the front door. There is no stealth. The plan just goes out the window.
Yup.
The bard ends up fighting by himself against a big bad because everyone thought that was a good idea.
The classic scenario.
Oh my
And
god.
the bard rolls really well for a long time and then stops rolling really well, and then you're like, oh no,
Mhm.
he's gonna die. Yeah, so it follows the rules of D&D really well. If you know the game, you can see the parts where it's like, oh, that was a fail roll.
Mhm.
Like someone tries to lend some intelligence to a situation, so they do an insight check and it scores really low. So they go, sorry, I fell asleep during those classes, so I don't remember.
That's real funny.
It's really funny. The writing is hilarious, fantastic. So, yeah.
You said that's on Amazon?
It is. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So
I'm
I
gonna check
highly
that out,
recommend
yeah.
watching it. It's very easy to watch. The first episode will have you sucked in. It starts with piece of shit characters. You're like, God, these guys suck. Why would I
Yeah.
even follow them? Like kind of like Noragami. I was like, why would I follow these guys? And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, they're not them then. Oh.
Damn.
So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely fell in love with that. Paranoia Agent was a quick watch. So yeah, I had a lot of free time after that to get into that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much been it, other than, for media and consumption.
I love that. I can't wait till JSB AnimeCast does their D&D episode, their D&D one shot. Rob,
Oh, boy.
Rob will be perfect for it because he's never played.
Never played.
Oh,
So-
this will be great.
One day, we'll see. I'll put it in the what's it called? The think tank.
In the queue.
Yeah, in the queue.
Put it in the queue. Patreon exclusive content.
Patreon exclusive content, exactly. What about you, Rob? Consumed any interesting anime adjacent media or just fascinating media in general?
It's really just been following the shows that I'm currently watching, right? So
Mhm.
like I caught up on Musume Road to the Top,
Hell yeah.
which I discovered last week that it is actually a short season, right?
Mhm.
So instead of being like 12 episodes, it's only 4. So
Yep.
today is actually the last episode of it. I haven't watched it yet.
Me either.
But I was talking to you, Asher, about it before, but I really like the idea of like side games having these smaller, more concise storylines for like some of these other characters, right? So for anybody that doesn't really know, I don't know if we ever went over what Uma Musume even really was, but it essentially what it is an anime that's based off of like horse racing, right? Instead of the horses themselves are actually like horse girls, and they're in like school and they're training to run races and stuff like that. But each character is based off of a real life horse and has their own history with it, right? So the second season follows like Tokai Teo and like the insane story that is that character, and it deals with like sports injury in a way that like no other show has really ever captured. One of my favorite sports anime, like, just period.
What's wild about that? After you showed me that season, I watched the real race, which Japanese Japanese like derby horse racing isn't that long. It's like it's like a 2-minute race. I'll watch the real race after that, and I'll start getting teared up because because I relate it to this anime so hard, and I'm just like, Tokai Teo really did it, like. And it's like, it's not a cute little Japanese girl, it's a real horse, and I'm crying over it.
Horse. We are crying over
these horses. People were that inspired by it, though. Like, as a sports narrative, just like anybody, just like Americans are inspired by certain derby horse racing here. We hear about it every so often. you know, this horse is getting close to the Triple Crown or what have you, people, I see why people get inspired by it. So
Exactly. Yeah. So it's cool to have side games do like this smaller scaled show, right? In between like the larger season 3 that's coming later this year. So you have this season that follows, was it TM Upper O, which is the most Asher horse to ever exist.
Yeah, we love TM Opera O here.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we do.
It follows Admire Vega and Narita Top Road as they fight for the Derby win, right? And it's very, very good. I did not think I would love all 3 of these characters, right? They all have their motivations for wanting to be number 1 in this race, right? Yep. And seeing Narita Top Road's like journey, right, of just like she's almost there and then it just like kind of gets taken away, and then like you feel like the pressure that she feels and everybody else around that is like trying to push this character forward and get her the win, right? It's really fascinating stuff. And then TM Opera is just over here doing theater things and just going ha 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 and just whatever. Yeah. I did look into Admire Vega, right? In her whole scenario with like the twin thing, and that is something that actually occurred, that I found fascinating, right? So there's this idea that if horses have twins, right, that they're not capable of running races, like they're not as good as like a purebred horse, right?
Yeah, a single one.
A single horse. So with Admire Vega, like there are twins, and they went and killed one of the unborn so that they can only, you know, give birth to one horse.
Yeah.
And that was very tragic, very sad.
So that's her narrative in the show.
Yeah.
Which is that she had like a twin sister, but she died.
And it's like this survivor's guilt kind of thing.
Or when you say this is for you and you fail, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't the plan.
Yeah.
God.
It hits really hard.
It's good.
It's very, very good. So I'm very curious to see where this last episode goes for that. I find it really funny that like you can spoil yourself on the anime season if you just go look at the history of these horses.
Yeah, you can.
It's very funny.
Did they already say who's the lead horse for season 3?
It's Santono Diamond and Kita-san Black.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So the 2 that were kind of introduced towards the end of the 2nd season.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
The little ones that were trying to be a part of Spica and whatnot.
Yeah, the kids.
One was following who was it? One was following Teo, was a big Teo supporter, and the other one was McQueen.
McQueen. McQueen.
Yeah.
McQueen. McQueen supporter. Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna see those 2 next.
That's exciting.
But, very much so. Outside of that, I mean, we went to go see the RADWIMPS concert. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, that did happen. Feels like forever ago, even though we just got back from that. I feel like there was one more thing I was watching, but I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, I completely spaced on one that I watched too, and I was like, dang it, I do this every time. I always forget one thing that I was watching. I finally saw Ponyo.
I still haven't seen Ponyo.
Oh wow.
I know.
Yeah, a friend of mine who we were doing like a girls' night. And I said, "Hey, do you want to watch Ponyo?" And she just yelled, "Ham!" And I was like,
"Ham? Is that yes or no?"
It's a reference to Ponyo.
Oh,
and I was like, she just yelled, "Ham!"
Oh my god! Wait, did you know that was a reference to Ponyo, or were you just as confused, Jenny?
Oh, I had no idea. I'd never seen it before, so she just yelled, "Ham!" And I'm like, "You okay? You good?" But now,
so
yes, it's a reference to Ponyo.
That's so good.
After the moment happens, I'm like, I get it now.
Yeah, that's really funny.
I think Ponyo is getting a theater showing pretty soon, right? I think I saw that.
They always re-aired the Ghibli stuff.
I think that's coming around pretty soon, within next month or so. So maybe we should go see that if you haven't watched it.
Oh yeah.
Looking around. Obviously, Jenny said hell yeah, so I'm assuming you liked it.
Yeah, it's hard to, I guess, for there to be a Ghibli film that I don't like so far. So it's like Tarantino.
Yeah. I feel that, which is really funny because they're very different.
But they have that same thing. Like they churn out like really good movies.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Either one, though, their worst film is better than most people's best film.
Yes,
So,
actually.
Yeah.
It's like probably the worst Tarantino film is online with like Shyamalan's best.
Yeah, exactly. So, I completely get that. Well, that's awesome to hear, and makes me even more excited for it because I've been off that train. I haven't gotten on that train in like ages. I missed the train, so I'm just kind of like, I should see this constantly, but I never do. So this is an excuse.
Yeah, Paul and I have been saying we need to see the Totoro one for like 4 years since we met.
Yeah, Totoro's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I watch that probably once a year.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Aw, okay.
Yeah.
With that little cute
Very, very
opening. Hey,
Yes.
let's go.
So good. So cute.
God.
But yeah, that's kind of it. If the other one hits me, I'll bring it up. But
Okay. For me, to the top. Need to watch that 4th episode. I watched Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
that's not an anime.
It isn't, but
A fantasy smut novel wasn't anime either, but
But we support smut stuff. You know, there's.
Oh my god, I love that. We do though. Anyway,
We do.
The only reason I wanted to bring it up today is because I felt as if there was a lot of thematics with Made in Abyss in that movie.
You have been saying this.
There is a lot of specifically the Made in Abyss movie in Guardians 3. I would say that the villain of Guardians 3 is just PG-13 MCU Bone Druid.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense considering what Guardians 3 is about. Yeah.
So I really one, it's in my top 5 MCU films. 2, it's the movie I cried the most in from the MCU movies. Not that they're all like tearjerkers or anything like that.
Right.
But I guess what I really admired about it, it's James Gunn's last like hurrah with the MCU. And I've been a fan of James Gunn for a long time, like ever since the days of like Slither and Lollipop Chainsaw was when I first heard of him. And he's completed a trilogy that is actually like in the MCU, all 3 films are good, finally. And what I really admire is that like the emotional moments in this movie, not all of them, but there are like some heavy hitting emotional moments. They don't crack a joke at the end, like some Marvel movies do. Like, God, it's so fucking annoying.
That's the formula, right?
It's so annoying. The formula
they always run.
Yeah, and I get it. Like a lot of people like that, but like me, it's just a missed opportunity to really like engage with the emotion. It's probably why I cried the most, was because like they would have a scene and they wouldn't crack a joke at the end of it, and I'm left there to sit in it as like they're pushed by this like this thing they have to move forward with in the next scene, and I'm just like, please, like please, fix it. I need you to fix this. This is all horrible. But ultimately, like, hopeful, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's still like a MCU movie. But I encourage people to watch it, and I wonder very much so if James Gunn has seen Made in Abyss, because there are things that I'm very much like, this is so weirdly similar. It's like weirdly similar, but not exactly on the nose. It's still like I don't see it as so similar that he just took a plot from something and then shoved it in Guardians of the Galaxy. It feels like a Guardians of the Galaxy plot. Like, this is still very quintessential to that story that he's telling, but there are some aspects of it in the horror, that like goes on in there that I'm like, I'm evoking feelings of Made in Abyss, and that's why it's like anime adjacent for me, and I had to talk about it.
No, that's interesting. I hope I can get some time to watch it. I'm very interested after hearing your review of it.
Yeah,
like I was gonna watch it anyway, right? Because I do enjoy Guardians.
Yeah,
but
Jenny doesn't like Guardians.
Not a Guardians fan.
I can't stand Guardians of the Galaxy.
I love Guardians of the Galaxy.
It took me a minute.
Yeah,
I can see why people enjoy it and why they like it, for sure. one, I'm not a fan of Chris Pratt, and that really just takes a
I
lot
am
of...
not either. I'm not either.
I'm not a big fan of Chris Pratt or the character he plays.
Star-Lord?
It's just Chris...
Star-Lord, yeah.
Star-Lord
like,
is Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
it's him
I
acting
don't,
like himself.
yeah, I don't like Star-Lord. I don't like Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
But I like other cast members of that team. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm
Because he's so...
kind of there for them.
He's so prominent, though. I can't
Yeah.
watch it without just... It's...
If it does make
No,
you...
I get it.
If it
I
does
get
make
it.
you feel... So he... Obviously, he's in the third film. He's still, like, the guy.
Obviously.
And he's... I would say he's still in there more than a bunch of others. The film is definitely a Rocket story, though. It is 100% a Rocket tale. And the entire zeitgeist around it is so fascinating because, like, people wonder why it got a PG-13 rating. I see it, but I guess maybe I'm so much older now and so far away removed from the age of 13 that maybe I'm like, you know, maybe I don't know what's appropriate for 13 anymore. But I think definitely people were shocked at some of the scenes. I think people weren't, because everyone I think that's why I like it so much, is that, like, if you're going in expecting emotional scene and then joke at the end, which will make you still feel okay, they don't do that. And so I think people felt really bad, and they were therefore like, you know, people should research this film before they go into it. Some people say it's not for kids at all.
Wow.
You know, some adults are like, I can't even handle that stuff. And I was like, whoa.
Interesting.
It didn't feel like too much to me, but I've also been exposed to so much, like, right? The last film I watched before that was Evil Dead. So, like, it doesn't compare. But it's also, like, I think it's just what people are expecting, you know? And conceptually, it's horrifying, the stuff that happens in that film, even if they don't show you.
If you think about it, with all Marvel, the concept is pretty awful.
Yeah.
So, you know, but it was kind of like when I was talking about with Vox Machina. It's like, there are certain things, though, that probably shouldn't be seen. And I thought 16 was definitely, like, wow. You got to this point because you watched episodes 1 through 5. Come on now.
Yeah.
You can't just make this one episode. It's 16 plus.
Yeah, just the one episode. Yeah, which is so strange.
It is. Like, I kept checking the corner because I was just like, what rating is this? Swear to God, they said the F word like 17,000 times. There's no way that this is.
It's funny that you say that, because Guardians is the first MCU film to drop the F word. It dropped its one F word.
Got its one.
Got its one, and still
I love
held
that
the PG.
rule. It's so arbitrary.
It's so arbitrary.
So
Why did we measure? Movies are dumb. Movies are stupid.
They made a joke about that too, with like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like, it's a PG-13, so they could have used the F-bomb at one point, at any point, and they were like, does Gandalf do it?
Yeah, does Gandalf do it?
It's fucking hobbits.
Does Gimli do it? It'd be funny if Saruman
Legolas.
did it. Oh yeah, Legolas would be funny too. Either Merry or Pippin. I don't know. You could have a field day with that one. So yeah, that's my ringing endorsement for that film. This is anime adjacent, particularly because the OP was done by Studio Trigger. Me and Rob have been playing Omega Strikers. Omega Strikers came out this week in full. It was in early release or early access up until this point. It is an anime air hockey game made by some former members of League of Legends, and it's great. The changes that they made are fantastic.
It's fun.
I've been out of the game for a while because I was in a bad place competitively when I was playing that game, because I wanted to be really good at the game, and then that overtook me and made me feel bad about the game, so I stopped playing. But now I'm back in the game. I have a clear mind, and I'm just like, you know what? Just gonna enjoy the game.
Just here to have fun with the homies.
Just here to have fun with the homies. Let some unbridled rage out. But not in a bad way. And yeah, if you ever get the opportunity to play it, I recommend everyone just give it a try. It's free, so what do you got to lose? And definitely watch the OP, because you know, Studio Trigger, The goons who did Promare,
Kill la Kill.
Kill la Kill. I feel like I'm missing one.
There's another one in there somewhere.
Yeah, something else. But
Little Witch Academia.
Little Witch Academia, they did one of the Star Wars Vision episodes. Batshit animation studio that just does action scenes that are crazy, you know. So like, Gurren Lagann. Gurren Lagann.
Darling in the Franxx.
Oh my god, they did do Darling in the Franxx.
Everybody gets that one that they miss. It's fine.
And so, you know, encourage people to check that out. Fun time. And then I just got back from the Nakama monthly market. You know, the goons that we've done an episode at their place. They're doing their monthly market right now where they have like local vendors selling stuff. My sister is there. Go support her. She's selling keycaps. You can get a Sussy Among Us keycap. Pretty cool, you know, over there. And get some sake while you're at it. Rumor has it that they'll be opening the izakaya next week. As early as next week. So maybe expect us to go over there and maybe there'll be some content. All right, and then probably the last thing is the RADWIMPS concert where me and Rob went to New York with our homie Nick, and that was awesome.
Such a good show.
It's a great show. Like they had Suzume ads, you know, all over the place.
Of course. I
got my sister a sick shirt. It's a white RADWIMPS t-shirt. And on the front, it says "rad," just the word "rad," and it's almost like a vampire like type font. So it looks like kind of like teeth, I guess. And then on the back, it says "Wimps not dead." And that's just like, it's like one of those Japanese shirts you see in anime with English words on it, right? And I was just like, that's so sick.
That was like all their merch because like I have the jacket over there, right?
Yeah.
And then like there's like a little logo in front of it of just like this smiley face with a teardrop, and it just says "Cry today, smile tomorrow." And I'm just like, all right,
yeah,
this is great. I don't know.
I bought
and then the tour dates in the back.
Yeah, that's right. The tour dates on the back. I bought one of their bucket hats, and it just says 2023 on it.
All right.
In words, it doesn't have the numbers. It says 2023. And then if you look at the little tag in the corner, it says RADWIMPS. Very little tag in the corner, but otherwise the front of it says 2023, and I'm like, design's perfect for their merch.
Absolutely great.
I love it.
But a really awesome show. They played a wide variety. Original stuff, stuff from Your Name, stuff from Weathering with You, and stuff from Suzume. So if you particularly connected with each one, you know, they played one, a couple from each. They had 2 encore songs. The first one was the Your Name one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then I don't remember what their second encore song was, but
How many musicians are in RADWIMPS?
so they have their lead singer who has amazing English.
Fluent.
Fluent.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Lead
Makes sense,
guitar.
actually.
Yeah, they do the
Because all the
English version
songs
of the
have an English version, yeah.
Exactly. It makes complete sense. He plays guitar, and then they have their lead guitar, who he could fucking shred. He was awesome.
That man was going ham.
The bass player could shred too. That guy was awesome. So bass player, and then 2 drummers, and I think that's it. They didn't have a key player, right? Like sometimes the lead singer played keys.
Sometimes he did.
Okay, yeah. So they didn't have a dedicated
He would hop
keys
back
player.
and forth.
But he would alternate between like helping with guitar or doing his own thing on guitar, and then playing keys. So 5 members in total, but
yeah,
two drum kit setup, which is really awesome and very interesting. Because I don't think I've been to a concert with a 2 drum kit setup.
Did they do like a dueling drum thing by chance?
Yeah.
They did a dueling everything.
They did a dueling everything. So
the whole thing was just a giant fight of music.
Yeah,
at one
point, yeah. So that was probably my favorite part of the concert.
It was so good.
Was the lead guitarist starts like just ripping it, right? And the spotlight is on him. I think it was a red spotlight too. and then immediately, like at some point, it cuts off, and the bass player starts like ripping it, and the spotlight hits him, and it's blue, and then they start going back and forth, right? And then eventually a spotlight hits one of the drummers, and then he starts going off. The spotlight hits the other drummer, he starts going off. They start going back and forth, and then at some point the lead guitar and the drummer are playing together, and they're going crazy, and
They
then
team up.
and then yeah, they team up, they form a tag team duo, and then it switches over to the bass player and the other drum player, and then they form a tag team duo, and then you just have this royal rumble of music, and it's just, oh, it was so sick. I was
It
just
was like a sick 5-minute bit, just
Yeah.
like it just kept going and escalating and just like mind exploding.
I wasn't
That's
ready.
awesome.
I wasn't ready, but it was a great show. If they ever come back to America, which I think they will, I think they liked it, or at least they did a really good job of showing that they like it.
Yeah. I mean, the New York venue sold out, and they got a second night for it. So
Yep. So
they did good.
I'm if they come back, I encourage people to check them out. If they're accessible to you, I think they put on a great show. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. Did you have anything else you want to say about RADWIMPS, Rob?
No, you covered it. That shit was great.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, good trip overall. We went to Kinokuniya, and they almost tricked me into buying an anime statue, but thankfully they did not. I instead just bought a bunch of
I should have pushed them harder.
manga.
I apologize to everybody.
I bought a bunch of manga, and
Asher got me to buy this one.
oh, Look Back. Oh,
Look Back.
it's so good.
Very good.
Did you finish it?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Are you feeling it though?
I'm feeling it. Yeah. I'll report back once I finish it, and we'll talk about it in full.
Very excited. I got two of mine. Well, the Oshi no Ko I've had, and I've been reading. And if you haven't checked out the anime, please watch it. And then about the first volume of Kageki Shoujo, Jenny's favorite anime. Anyway.
Product placement.
Anyway, shall we move on to the?
That's a new emote right there.
Which one? The Jenny?
The disappointed Jenny.
The like.
Yes.
We'll get it added to the channel.
Yes.
Yeah, shall we move on to the main event?
Yeah.
If enter JSB Anime episode 1. Those title cards are so good. I forgot that he does those like title cards, and he weaves them in there like at the beginning of each episode, just like on street signs or billboards or on newspapers. It's so sick.
I love that shit.
And we'll get to that. But Rob, why did you pick Paranoia Agent? Let's go to the inner workings of Zen.
The inner workings of my mind.
Yeah.
So this was one I've been wanting to rewatch for a while. It's a show that has been on my mind like nonstop since like 2005 or something like that.
Damn, that's a long ass time ago.
A very long time. Like I cannot stop thinking about Paranoia Agent. Lil Slugger lives rent free in my brain. When it came over to the U.S. And was premiering on like Adult Swim and stuff like that. I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would just see Lil Slugger on my TV and I would have nightmares from that. So it is like an attachment. Like he just lives with me. And then I hear the OP singing in my head, just like every other.
It's a really good OP.
It's so good.
I wanted to know because Jenny, you've never seen it before, but I was like, man, what was your reaction the first time you turned it on? You just hit with this OP. Like, where is your mind at that point? Because
it is.
And Goon's laughing.
Yeah. It's
the
imagery behind it. Yes.
It's unsettling.
I love that shit. Like I love it when it gives you no clues about what's about to come.
Nope.
No.
And because that's what some OPs will ruin, right? I was watching the new opening for I think season 5 of My Hero, and I was like, "Oh, Eraserhead dies," and Paul's like, "What the fuck do you do? What? Where'd you get that from?" And I was like, "Well, I haven't seen it, and I still haven't."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "That's just a guess because the intro did this thing," and he was just like, he like glared at me like, "Fucking
He dies?
I don't know. I don't know. But he was just like, I don't know, maybe he gets close to it or something. I don't know. Because there are like a lot of times where you're like, All Might's going to die at some point or whatever. So, you know, when's it going to hit us? You know, so it's like, you just wait for everybody to die at some point. But I was like, I don't actually know. But it was like, I just said it because I was like, I feel like this trailer's giving away too much. It's long. There's a lot of stuff happening. The OP for Paranoia Agent, fantastic.
Perfect.
It set the right tone.
It's perfect.
Sometimes it's jarring when you have a very opposite OP to like the actual tone of the show.
Yeah.
Like my Made in Abyss, I really didn't like that one because I was like,
I like it. I like it because it's kitty.
I do like that stuff by default.
I like it because it's kitty, and then next thing you know, I'm like, oh. And then I'm ready to start the next episode. Ha ha ha! Having a good time at the OP. Oh.
That's his chance to breathe again.
Yeah, exactly.
Nah, skip the breathing.
Skip the breathing. We just would die. Yes.
Yeah. So I actually watched the OP a few times because I was like, this is actually enjoyable.
Yeah.
And then I loved the impact of it too. And actually, the closing was also very.
Oh, good. Yup.
Yeah.
Great ED.
So yeah. So
That's cool.
Big fan of it, honestly. I loved the hauntingness of the sound, the visuals, the art. I think actually the artwork really stood out to me in this one too.
Yeah,
it lends a big hand to the show.
I really love the overall art direction for this show. I love like the character designs. Every character is very unique in their appearance and their style. Like
some of them look wild. What's his name? Practically looks like a chameleon. Episode 2's focus. Or no, not episode 2. Episode 1. He's in episode 1. The news guy, right?
Yeah. The really grimy looking dude.
The sleazeball.
He looks slimy.
Yeah. He is slimy.
And he is slimy.
Right? The way he's stalking Tsukiko is just like, yeah. He drops like the pen or whatever and when they were meeting. It's just, right? But like, it's really cool that the design, like, it gives you that impression, right? Like everybody's design kind of fits who they are.
Exactly.
So that just all of those reasons, right? Was why I picked this. And then also it was like my apology to Jenny, right? Because I was like, okay, we have made her suffer through several things, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick something out of my back pocket here that I know, like deep down, I know she is going to.
Jenny gets one. She gets one freebie.
It's this one freebie.
I suffer it's like buy 5 get 1 free.
That's what it is.
I had to suffer through like 5 awful ones. I even watched Made in Abyss for you guys, and I was like.
But you liked the first season, though. You at least liked the first season, didn't you?
It was enough to watch it, yeah. But I still was driven nuts, fucking nuts by Rico. Like,
yeah.
I still go look at things and I go, well, at least it's not fucking Rico.
Fair enough. I feel the same way.
I feel like we got the one that just knocked it out of the park. It seems like so. Yeah, that's really my motivation. Like, I've been thinking about Satoshi Kon as well a lot, right? Because we have been watching like Black Swan and stuff. I have Perfect Blue on my shelf over here that I've been wanting to rewatch for a little while.
Yeah, and you liked Black Swan, right?
And I love Black Swan, right? So I was just like in the Satoshi Kon mood. So I was just like, this is a good pick. I think it's time.
Could you see the influence in Black Swan? Yeah,
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, it drifts between daydream and reality. So that's great. I'm glad you liked it.
For sure.
This was your first time consuming Satoshi Kon, right, Jenny? Have you consumed anything before?
If I have, I don't know. I guess the artwork should lend the clue.
It would lend the clue. So so he unfortunately passed away pretty young. So he doesn't have a ton of work.
It was late 2000s, right?
Yep. It was like late 2000s.
10-ish, somewhere around there. Yeah.
So he doesn't have like a wide range of work. So he has Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress, Tokyo Godfathers, Paranoia Agent is his one TV show.
Was it Paprika?
Paprika.
Yes.
And then his short film Ohio.
I've heard of Paprika. I can't remember why, but someone definitely put that on a high recommendations list.
It is my sister's favorite movie.
Well, I can't. What's the theme? Like, what's the plot?
So there's like a dream machine that allows you to go into other people's dreams while they're sleeping, and you can kind of like help them in that regard, like psychologically, like, and you can, I think you can also solve crimes with it. I think they were using it to solve crimes. But somebody gets a hold of it that isn't good, and they go into people's dreams, and they kind of fuck up their dreams, and then some people can't tell the difference between dream and reality. So you start to get like people who are like, they're having these flights of fancy where they're like living this amazing dream, and then they'll jump, and then like they killed themselves because they jumped off a balcony. You know, like stuff like that. It was one of the primary inspirations for Inception.
That's why. Okay,
Yeah.
that's why. I was like, I think it had to do something around high school time, and that
Yeah.
would have been when
Like
Inception came out.
like to a T. Like there's that scene where Elliot Page like touches the mirror, and then it shatters. Like that happens in Paprika. Somebody looks at like a mirror and they touch it and it shatters. Yeah, so if you ever want to watch any of those films, I think I have all of them.
The only one I haven't seen yet is Millennium
Like Flex.
Actress. Yeah. I wanted to watch that when it was in theaters, when they did the showing recently, and then I missed it. Yeah. That's the one I want to really see.
So Millennium Actress was the first Satoshi Kon thing I ever watched.
Really?
Yep.
I think
And
Perfect Blue was the first one for me.
ooh, I was talking with Paul about it earlier today, and Millennium Actress, I think so. Millennium Actress and Perfect Blue are sister movies. Like, Perfect Blue tackles specifically the like horrific side of fandom, whereas Millennium Actress actually like tackles a more like loving relationship between fan and like creator or artist.
Oh yeah, that's right. You brought that up before.
Yeah, and I think because it was the first one I saw, and I saw it at such a young age, it really makes sense, or like it tracks that like my love of certain media, like, or just love of things, really like kind of exploded forward. I think a lot of it has to deal with that film, because it really took a very like loving approach and not very cynical approach to the beauty of filmmaking. Like it's still very Satoshi Kon. There are like dark aspects to it, sad, tragic stuff. But at the end of the day, like the fan in it, because it's about it's a documentary. Like it's about a person who is creating a documentary on this famous movie star, who has been through like multiple eras of Japanese cinema. But he loves this actress. And not in some, like, weirdo way. In a genuinely, like, the stuff you've made and the stuff you've been through. Like, Japanese history and, like, everything we've went through as a country. You've lived through that, and yet you persisted making art. It means a lot to me. Is, like, I don't know. I get kind of teary-eyed thinking about it. I'm like...
Sort of like a resistance... my way of like showing resistance and fighting back.
Yeah, and I don't know, it was really sweet. And so it's really funny to watch Perfect Blue later and know it's the film that came before, because it's like, oh, this sucks. Like, this is awful.
In it.
Yeah, you gotta revel in it. And not everything is Millennium Actress, but also not everything is Perfect Blue either. But both exist. And, you know, that was a part of me growing up, that realization. And, yeah, I don't know. All his work's great. Once again, another thing, worst thing, better than most people's best thing. You know, especially since he hasn't had the opportunity to make more. The good thing is that, like, his inspiration lives on in so many things. Darren Aronofsky, you know, Black Swan, Christopher Nolan. Don't be surprised if there's more stuff in Oppenheimer that could directly reference Satoshi Kon. What's it called? One of his apprentices, his mentees, Yuasa.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yuasa.
If you're ever interested in seeing a series that is actually very close to exploring his relationship with his mentor Satoshi Kon. I think the show is called Hands Off Isaacin. That is about the creative process of wanting to create an anime. It's actually like a secret in for Yuasa to talk about his struggles as Satoshi Kon's mentee, because they make different stuff, but also you can see the thread of inspiration, like the thread of teaching between their works, because Yuasa covers a lot of different things, and so did Satoshi. So I don't know, it's really fun, and I'm glad that your first Satoshi Kon experience, Jenny, is so well regarded. So we know that all three of us like it. Why don't we let's take a different approach to this, because I think it is so good, and I think that every it is the first one that we've watched where it's like different characters. Yes. We could actually just, I'm down to just go down the line.
They're very related to each other, so there is no favorite. There is no need to distinguish really the significance of the character, like as to the whole plot, because they all are a part of the plot. There is no real main character.
Right.
Exactly. So with this first, like, how did we feel after the first episode? Like, how did you feel getting into it, Jenny? Because I know, like a good thing I think about is, like, when I was talking with Paul, he was like, it's a little bit slower to get into because we don't have as many characters. But then, right, once the second episode hits, we get introduced to more, and then the lines start to get like threaded together. But Jenny, how did you feel about like this first episode? Enter Lil Slugger, and then our introduction to the person who creates Moromi, Tsukiko, and then what's his name? The sleazy guy, sleazy reporter. I can't remember his name, but
so I really like the way that she is countering to the character that she creates.
Yes.
And then also the foundation of what Moromi was.
Yeah, which you don't find out until the final episode, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yep. And that whole journey is such a good one. It's honest.
It's so honest.
Comedians are the most depressed people on this earth.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that we look to for, ironically, comedy.
Yeah.
And the irony of that is just always astounding. So probably anyone who makes these kid shows may have no kids, may have had the worst childhood, may actually be very dark in nature and actually enjoy really dark things and struggle to write them, or create dark things, even though they enjoy partaking in them. And then the horror writers are usually like the happiest.
Like Junji Ito.
Yeah.
Watching Junji Ito put on the cat ears and be like this.
Like, I thrive at writing horror, and I suck at writing like happy things, and I'm actually a really happy person. So, like it's like, so it was kind of really cool to see like the honesty of that.
Yeah.
You know, that even though her room and her office well, actually her room is pretty drab, but her office is like surrounded by these things.
Yep.
I loved how much pressure there was too for her. Like, go ahead and churn out another thing that's even better than your masterpiece. Oh, thanks. I can't even like sit long enough to well in this one for a while. So her whole struggle, even though she's not a character that I personally relate to, because she was, and I don't think that's the intent. I don't think you're supposed to relate to how like blah she is.
Yeah.
But you can sympathize with just how crappy that whole situation probably feels.
Yeah.
His whole thing, I was like, what did you do? Like, the reporter?
Yeah.
I know they said that he hit somebody with his car or whatever, but it was like, and then now he can't drive anywhere.
Yeah.
So he got his license taken away, but it was like, you feel no sympathy for him. I want to see him suffer. And he's not the only one that I feel that way about either. Which is very satisfying to wait for that moment.
Yeah.
Like, till you get what's coming. I'm going to sit here.
Isn't it interesting to have, like, maybe a more sympathetic character who we're introduced to first, and then this kind of, like, sleazeball and they're both victims of Lil Slugger, like during the episode. It's fascinating, right? It's almost like a what's the word I'm looking for here? There's no, it doesn't regard that. Like Lil Slugger isn't looking at whether you're good or whether you're bad. It doesn't discriminate, I guess.
That's like the whole show, right? Like,
yeah.
Every character you get introduced, it's like some are good, some are not so good.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. Everybody can still feel this thing and be affected by something like Lil Slugger, right?
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
And it's perfectly painted. Lil Slugger is a concept.
Yeah. Not a
actual person. Yeah.
Not an actual person.
When he turned around at one point and goes, "Oops." What? No way. No fucking way.
It's really funny, especially like down the line. I want to say around like episode 6 or 7, when it's a real person that does the attack. Because Satoshi Kon constantly wants to play with like, what do you perceive to be real? The audience member. And what is the perceived timeline? He is constantly like match cutting something, and then you're suddenly either in like a different place or you're in a different time. And then your brain has to like be active. It has to be like, whoa. Like, okay, it's a little bit jarring, but it keeps you on your toes, and it makes you like get caught in the delirium of everything that's going on. Let's see. Then we have the second episode, which is the Golden Shoes. That's the child pressure.
Oh,
politics.
God, Ichi.
Ichi.
How do you feel about how do you two feel about Ichi?
Rob first.
Ichi, man, to see Ichi's like downfall into paranoia was just like, it was a lot.
It's a lot.
Like, and it's, for a child too, like I can see how this spirals, right? Like Ichi is at the top of the world, as it were, right? Like the #1 student, and then he's challenged by this kid that comes here for the class president or whatever. It seems like a sweet kid, honestly.
Yeah.
But like the fact that like things start turning against him, and then he starts like, you know,
he starts to associate it with him.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, oh, this is the one thing that is now different. It must be his fault.
Exactly.
Right? And even though he doesn't have like proof of it, he believes in it, and it's like I can see how that happens. I feel that like that's a very real thing, especially for kids. Like,
especially for kids.
Reason, throw it out the window. You know, it's like this is the truth. I know it is. I find that story to be fascinating. I don't really care for Ichi that much, but like his entire story though in that whole episode I find very, very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How about you, Jenny?
Two things I'll highlight with Ichi that I liked about the storytelling about Ichi's character. Or actually probably 3. See if I can remember all 3 of them. The first one is I typically relate to the characters that feel a lot of pressure to do really great and always be a top performer.
Yeah.
It looks nice, it looks pretty to be able to do it and feel really happy about it. But it was really sad for me to like see him feel that pressure of not being there anymore. Because that's the worst fall. Like the higher you climb, the worse the harder the fall. And it's always going to happen, and you're always, it's not a matter of if but when. And that's always scary. I put a lot of pressure on myself to always have been like an overachiever, but it's like once I started, I couldn't pull back and just be a standard kid. Like I wasn't allowed. That's not an option. And that's really, and I always feel for characters like that. What I loved was the honesty of how you have to think sometimes, and you have to be competitive, even if it's kind of ugly. Competition at its root is ugly. I have to prove that I am better than XYZ. But really, I just prefer to say, hey, we're all pretty damn good. You know?
Yeah, you would prefer to.
Yeah, I would prefer to, but we can't. Right?
No,
we can't settle for being like, yeah, second's fine.
Yeah,
that's not how that works.
That's not how competition works.
Yeah, and you're still in top 3, so that's still a good. That should still feel like a good feeling to be second, but you can't even celebrate being, you know, number 2.
Yeah.
It's like celebrating a 99 on a test
Yeah.
you studied really hard for. So I really did like that painting of Ichi. Another thing too that is true is child psychology that was told in this story. So children from like people, I should say, from birth all the way through adulthood actually increase their awareness of their role in the community. So their circle of awareness starts to get bigger as you get older. You actually get to see this in children's artwork most predominantly. So when a child starts to draw themselves or drawing in general, they'll draw themselves first,
Yeah.
and then they start drawing parents, but then even their parents kind of look like them. They start highlighting the features, and this is where you start seeing more detail in kids artwork. Is it starts with the features that kids pay attention to, which is they'll start looking like little circles with legs is where the kids start, because that's what they see, how their parents' legs and the parents' face when the parents like right in their face all the time, right? And then the older the kids get, the more developed they start noticing arms, and then they notice height differences too, so they start drawing them taller to distinguish adults, kids, adults, kids. So then that's when they start adding backgrounds too, because then they're noticing more, like, oh, we have a house, yes, and we have a dog, and then that's how you start to notice the world, the awareness of the world expand, and that happens too. And Ichi, being the kid that he is the center of his world, because that's true how kid psychology is. Where do I play in this world? And so he's actually a little bit more mature, because he does see others around him and his place in their world. But also when that changes, he's like, I haven't even been able to enjoy and get used to this world. Now he's like, I can't see the potential of where I'm supposed to go if it doesn't stay on the path that I was already on. So it's very, very jarring. The younger it is, it could still be very bad when you're like, it doesn't matter, you're still in elementary school, kid. Like, it doesn't do anything. So I mean, you see this in your lie too, right? When the kids play sports, it hits them a lot harder to lose, because they're like, that was my last year in junior high, and now that's the note I end on for this whole saga. No do-overs. And that awareness is often a maturity that develops because you put yourself out in those kinds of lights. So put yourself at risk to do that, to be a high achiever, star performer. So I really loved that he was painted that way, and he was allowed to have conniving thoughts. But they're accurate. And when you think everyone's looking at you, they probably aren't, actually.
They probably aren't.
No.
Yeah. No. It's like when you go to the gym and you're like, God, everyone's watching me. Oh, God, there's a stain on my shirt. Oh, God.
I always felt that. I was riddled with that, like, in middle school to high school. Riddled with it.
It's worse when you're younger. When you get older, you get more comfortable going, like, I don't think about anybody else when I'm here. They're probably the same boat as me, where they're not even paying attention that I'm here, other than, you finished with that?
Yeah. Exactly.
And then the third thing I'll highlight is I don't hate Ichi after all of that. And I don't think you're supposed to. I think you're supposed to kind of feel for him that moment of relief that they talk about. You feel that with him. You're like, I'm kind of relieved for you too, buddy. That was pretty tough.
Is that the episode where they start talking about how the victims are feeling relieved after that? Yeah. That's a very interesting spin on the story.
You're starting to get a sense that Shounen Bat is like setting people free.
Yeah.
Is how people feel about it.
Right. Not in the way that you planned, but in a way. Well, except for one of them, right?
Yeah, except for one of them. But yeah. Well, that's good to hear, because like I was genuinely curious. I find this that episode is so fascinating to me, and I also like heavily relate to Ichi. It's funny because I was never like a grade high grade student, but I was a very extracurricular student. I always tried to excel in extracurricular. I was on student council, I did theater, I played sports, and so like there are those kinds of pressures. Every kid goes through different pressures at that age. His story just happened to be told in this way, because what's his name? Even the one he was running against, he felt pressured in other ways. And actually had to, he was bullied. He had to move schools.
Well, he did it because his counselor also told him to put himself out there.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. There is a really interesting story to tell, and I don't know, just a great follow-up to that first episode. Because once again, completely different circumstances. Yet here we are. And speaking of completely different circumstances, that train keeps rolling with episode 3, Double Lips, which is the Harumi and Maria episode. Jenny, you loved Harumi / Maria?
I did. Oh my god.
So sad.
So sad. And just like, okay, so I think a lot of media, and when did Paranoia Agent come out actually?
2004, I think.
Yeah.
So I think still then people were shying away from talking about mental
Absolutely.
And especially in media, right? We know it exists, but we certainly don't want to glamorize a character that has it either. Has something. We don't want to even talk about it. And here we are. She's going to a doctor for it.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's great.
And she was almost going through like a self-therapy on it too, by sending herself messages, from the other voice to at least have some sort of comms,
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that was actually a really good depiction without being dramatic. It really wasn't over dramatized. I think it was accurate. I remember Sybil was one of the main stories about that. So it roots from, it's a true story of multi-personality disorder, and it was one of the worst cases. I think it's like the most voices in one person, like 7, but they all came from trauma, and that's how usually these kinds of disorders occur, multi-personality disorder. So it's like, man, something traumatic must have happened where to get rid of it, you'd have to get re-traumatized or develop another personality. And that's what happened with Sybil. And then there was how stark different those characters were. I also thought too about the dangers of potentially she could have had like some sort of venereal disease because of her other side, and so but it affects both of them, right? You guys share a body. It's not like you had to create a second one. Whatever this one eats, you're feeling that too, and then it's going to impact her husband. And the fact she didn't want to tell him, of course, why would she? You know?
It's tough.
It is.
Yeah.
So the pickle that she found herself in was just so sad, because it's like, I don't know if there's anyone who could, potentially find a partner who's totally fine with the alternate person, right? Like, I'm cool with both, Oh, today I'm married, that's fine, no problem. No, it's not like
such a valid fear.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
like I felt bad for him not knowing.
Yeah, especially since he seemed like such a caring guy.
I seem like such a boring guy, too.
I mean, he wasn't the main character in the story, to be fair.
Right. That's the only character I don't sympathize with. The least sympathized character.
Yeah.
Listen, that's what Harumi wants, all right? She has enough excitement going on.
That's true.
She just needs a rock to be there, you know?
Absolutely. I think it's at this point that, because it had also been a long time since I watched it, that you start to see this thematic, whether it's a very literal thing that, like, this other personality takes over, or even a different mental thing where everyone seems to be living dual lives, right? We've been introduced to 4 characters now. Everyone has, like, the persona that maybe the media knows, maybe your school knows, or maybe your husband knows, but there's also another side, maybe one that you're trying to hide. And since it's so, like, literal here, or like it's so, like, Harumi and Maria here, that's when it really, like, it starts to drive it home.
Which makes sense why it's near the end too. Of all the characters and the story arcs that we need to know about. I do think that is the entire motif, is hiding something about who you really are, always, and there's different ways to do it.
There are.
Where it's very, very drastic, like, oh yeah, I got the money to buy this house.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Hirokawa.
Or
that piece of shit.
Or you're a kid who's actually really insecure.
Or you're a kid that's really insecure.
So,
yeah.
I think that's why. I'm curious though. Is that why it's called Paranoia Agent? Because the thing that will develop paranoia in everyone is that they have to hide something about themselves from everyone. And then you're worried about someone discovering your secret.
Alright, so I guess the way I've always looked at the title paranoia agent.
Mm-hmm.
So like a something that instills paranoia. I guess to me that is really interesting to hear, because maybe it is more than one thing. Because
all of the above.
Because yeah, all of the above. Because I've always viewed it as like, okay, well, Muromi is the paranoia agent. It's the paranoia agent, you know, like because like it's like this central like thing, like among all the stories that like the actual like embodiment of Muromi has like led to all these other things within other people, whether it is the creation of Muromi, or it's like the weird shared bond of Muromi. Like we'll get to that story eventually, the family story. But I've always seen the paranoia agent is the catalyst for paranoia, I guess. And so my perception was always that Muromi was the reveal is that Muromi was the paranoia agent. But it also makes sense that like societies need to separate the different sides of ourselves and like hide things. Also it definitely induces paranoia. I personally deal with like the paranoia of like hiding things when that stuff comes up, right?
Yeah, I never viewed it as like a specific thing being the paranoia agent, right? Like I do think it's kind of more like it's like the concept of Lil Slugger, right? And like how society has like these pressures and this stress that like creates paranoia in your brain, right? It doesn't have to be Muromi. It could be anything, right? And like you were saying, like it's a catalyst, right? Whatever is this thing that induces paranoia in somebody. And in this particular story that Kon is telling, it is this idea that starts with like Muromi, right? Yeah. And branches into Lil Slugger since they're so interconnected. But it could be anything. Like it doesn't have to be a single thing. It's this whole story of just the idea of the pressure that society like puts upon us.
I think what's kind of funny is that Lil Slugger was her next idea.
Yeah.
It became the next big thing. Like she really did do it. She accomplished it.
Yeah.
It's just a different genre that no one expected. They were like another Muromi type story. No, she made shit the other way.
Complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Wait, how did I not think of that?
Oh, you just blew Ash's mind.
I'm so fucking dense. I feel so dense right now.
It's okay. You watch that movie about two guys having dinner for an hour and a half. You're like, you know.
Oh, I love my. Hey, everyone, watch My Dinner with Andre. It's a great movie.
I'm always gonna remember that. That shit was hilarious. That you're like, yeah, people are kind of elitist with this one. It's just two guys having dinner, but I think it's great.
Yeah,
you probably never
so
heard
cool.
of it.
I love My Dinner with Andre though. But it's definitely like a, you know, like type of movie. Like put my nose up. Anyway, I digress. Great question. And great. Damn, that's gonna bother me. Her next idea was Lil Slugger.
And it was a hit. Everyone was talking about it.
Everyone was talking about it, especially like once we get to that gossip episode, the episode that's just gossip.
All those ladies.
Circles.
Yeah. Oh my god! And the ending of that. We'll get to that episode. We're only on episode 3. We can't. We could double back if we need to from that episode. And speaking of, the house. It's a perfect segue because the next episode is, our cop Iwakawa. Where he's getting blackmailed and has that weird daddy thing.
Oh.
The daddy thing, but also probably because his daughter found out about that stuff down the line. It made it, like, as we watched this episode, it made an irredeemable character even more irredeemable in a later episode. Which is like crazy.
Glad you already hated him to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just reinforces that hatred towards him.
And what's awful is like as he was like committing these crimes, he was like envisioning himself as like almost
The
like
hero.
as a hero, like a Fist of the North Star, like manly character. When
You're
in
so delusional, my guy.
yeah,
He lost it.
he absolutely lost it. And what's crazy is he still gave into it at the very end. The pressures of doing this, these terrible things, and then what's crazy is that that stuff kind of ends on a comedic note. He gets hit with the baseball bat. We see our, like, at this point we've kind of established a formula. We get to the end of the episode, and usually they get smacked. He became a
hero.
Yeah, he became a hero. Oh, terrible! He the comeuppance of a character who doesn't deserve it. Like Satoshi Kon was willing to like go there. He gets hit, and in the same shot that we normally see the episode end, it immediately goes to, "Hey, why'd you do that?" And he throws it. He like throws the shoe at the kid or whatever, and then like takes down the kid. It's almost like this ridiculous comedy moment. But then also you're kind of saddled with after that. Shit, this fucking asshole
who doesn't deserve this any
doesn't
sort
deserve
of
it. Not at all.
recognition or praise at all.
Yeah.
He caught Lil Slugger.
He caught Lil Slugger.
But didn't. Right?
But didn't. But also didn't.
But didn't.
Yeah. That's. Would you say he's the most irredeemable character?
Yeah.
Out of all the episodes?
Yeah.
Without question.
Oh yeah.
Without question.
There was nothing that you could say he did good or well. He was not a good father.
Nope.
He was extremely creepy, terrible.
Not a good husband either, right? He was
not a good husband.
Always engaging with all the prostitutes and yeah.
Forgetting that his daughter, I was like, you have a daughter?
Yeah.
That makes it even worse. Oh, actually, he's got a daddy fetish. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Now it's even, I thought it couldn't be bad enough.
Yeah. It's awful. It's so awful.
He's terrible. Absolutely terrible.
And like when he's having like dinner with the investigator or whatever, and he's just talking about like how he's trying to buy a house for his family and shit like that. Bro, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like,
it's for his family.
You just knew it was shit too. You knew it was full of shit.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Complete bullshit.
God. Yeah, that's it's such a wild episode to me because it is centered on this like completely irredeemable character. But at this point it's the first episode that made me end in such laughter.
It's goofy.
Because of the comedy,
so
because of the comedy of the circumstances.
He throws the fucking bottle and
yeah, exactly.
Like, all right.
It opens with that an off-duty cop was a hero or whatever, and caught this like horrible, killer, or not a killer, like assaulter.
And then also like, this is such a wild moment. It's a very Satoshi Kon moment of like, wait, we had hints that this was fake up until this point, and suddenly he interacts with Lil Slugger, and it's a real thing. So what's going on here? My brain's playing some gymnastics here. Like, what is it really?
You just hit us with the hey, what's the big idea?
Yeah, what's the big idea? Is Lil Slugger real or not? And that's when we get to the next episode, which is the Holy Warrior. How did we feel about this character? The one who followed the RPG guidebook. Rob, you said you like this.
My man's was delusional.
Uh-huh.
But it's one of those things where like the story of Little Slugger affects people different ways, right? And some people will latch on to it, and take it to a whole nother level, right? Rumors grow and people latch onto these things, which could trigger someone to do something horrible, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we kind of see in this character, right? And he's so caught up in this grand delusion of like saving them or collecting like these items and shit. Like he's playing it as if he's playing Dragon Quest.
Yeah, it's exactly like Dragon Quest. Yeah.
And to see how deep down in the hole he was, like even after he gets caught and like they're interrogating him and he's just like not breaking character like the entire time, and the other cop is like kind of
the cop is into it, right? Yeah, so the good like, cop, quote unquote.
So like throughout this entire episode, we're taking on like this fantasy adventure.
Well, it's kind of funny that he's the one that's into it, right? Because by the end of the series.
Yes,
he is living his own kind of like vigilante fantasy, right? When it's like become weirdly like Batman,
Radar Man.
Yeah, Radar Man. So like it in a weird way, in a weird funny way, it was almost like a foreshadowing to that. But certainly better than this kid.
This kid that's just hitting people.
Yeah,
with this bat. But yeah, I just like the effects that we're seeing, the effects of like what the story of Lil Slugger is having on other people, right? And I thought that was really interesting how they explored that through this.
Because he saw Lil Slugger as, didn't he say he saw him as like a hero or something? Yeah, like
the whole.
Go ahead.
It's around this point that the whole show kind of takes a turn.
Yeah.
You have multiple fantasies. Right, we just mentioned to a point. Actually, I think Maria's a whole thing is also a fantasy of sorts, right?
Yes,
living out this crazy, wild second life or double life or whatever. Probably living out these fantasies that she never would have in her real or her normal persona.
Absolutely.
And then you've got his delusions, Ichi's delusions too. Probably thought he was more popular than he actually was, right?
Probably.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. No doubt a star performer for sure as a kid, but also people don't care. Like they know that he has the best in school, but they're not fantasizing.
It's so inconsequential at that age.
Yeah.
It is.
Too.
It is. Yeah, because that all changes by the time you get to high school and then college. Even then, it changes.
Yep.
And that was probably one of the things I really hated from transitioning from high school to college, was that I was a small fish in a big pond now, and I was like, damn it, I was so good in high school.
I felt the same way. I felt the same.
Start over.
Yep, got to start over, and you'll never make it back to the top either, because the school's just too big in college. Then you had the superhero one that we talked about, where he's like robbing people, and he sees himself as a superhero, defending his lover, mysterious whatever, and then the guy who idolizes a Lil Slugger as a hero, a white knight, and then Watanabe, he's also goes in his own character that he creates to defeat Lil Slugger, essentially.
Yeah, the real villain, Lil Slugger.
Yeah. Oh, and then the cop too. When he goes into when he gets fired, he goes into this paper world.
This mind palace that he's in.
Yeah.
Right, where Lil Slugger can't get them.
Yeah, where Lil Slugger can't get them ultimately.
But absolutely does.
But absolutely does.
He does get them.
He's gonna break through.
Yeah.
So that's the.
It does take a complete turn in tone. Everything is real.
Yes.
Everything's realistic.
Yeah.
And it stops being realistic. It starts going to like the only way to understand the true story though is to go into a fantasy world.
Yeah. Exactly. It's that descent. Now we're heading into the dreamland scenario for like each person. It really is, and it's funny they mention that, because that's also the first episode that doesn't end with an attack. So like we see what's happening here is starting to like unravel, and it's, I don't know, it's really fascinating. The next one after that is Fear of a Direct Hit. This one is the one where we find out about the dad stuff. This is the grandma, which it's really funny watching Satoshi Kon play with it, because it's almost implied that the girl, I can't remember her name, but it does this weird runaway? Like cutting in time. Yeah, the runaway. It's weirdly implied that the grandma is her grandma, but then the reveal at the end is that she's not her grandma. And you find out that she's the daughter of the cop who has the daddy thing, and that when she was younger, that was an awful. That was awful, 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 awful reveal. And it's in the midst of this storm. So you got like nature acting as like another force within the midst of everything going on. And I don't know, how do we feel about the grandma character? Because one of the more interesting things is that grandma character's been there since episode 1. She was kind of like a little bit creepy looking when
old man and the old woman.
Yeah, old man and the old woman. When Tsukiko was running, old people, turns out they're terrifying. Tsukiko is running down the alley and sees her, and she's like kind of telling this whole story to the cops, you know, about like her life. And one of the cops is just like not having it. He's just like, can we like just get to this thing? And she's trying to like,
stress.
Yeah,
all right. He's trying to put an end to all this.
And she's just trying to explain her situation and the good cop bad cop thing. The good cop's just like, let's listen. She might have something to like say. And eventually she gives it up, right? Eventually she says, I saw Tsukiko like alone. No one was there. And she looked over, she grabbed a pipe, and she hurt herself. Now where are we? Now where are we with the like, we caught the culprit, but then now this other person is saying, I saw her alone though, and she hurt herself.
And then you're just like, what is actually happening here?
Yeah.
Right.
Did either of you feel so certain about what was happening?
Like before that moment, or the whole show basically up to as we're like unraveling the mystery?
So like on this episode, once the grandma is like, she was alone, she hurt herself.
Well, everyone is an unreliable character.
Yeah.
She's also homeless, so what makes her any more trustworthy than anybody else who says, no, definitely got hit. And we have evidence of other people getting attacked by this, so it's like, what are the chances there's a coincidence with these where she doesn't actually get attacked, but then suddenly everyone does, and now there's a lot of confirmation of the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone's unreliable in terms of their answering questions and telling their stories. I feel like a lot of it's lies. There's a lot of lying and deceit.
It's just Among Us, the anime.
Oh my god.
He's just waiting for this to
the
happen.
biggest eye roll for Rob on Earth. Asher's just can't shut up about Among Us.
I'm just gonna shut off my camera.
Anyway, continue.
No, so I felt like I didn't really take a lot of stake in her story. I felt like maybe she could have also missed it too when he was there. He was a fast moving thing, you know?
Yeah.
He is on some skates. He could be in and out.
Which he was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really didn't feel like I believed her story either. I felt like there's a lot of people paint themselves out to be also kind of like, oh, I wasn't that involved, or it wasn't that much of my fault. Well, maybe it was, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. What about you, Rob?
I'm
at this point. Same thing?
I mean, kind of the same thing, right? Like, you do have a lot of these unreliable stories going around. But I mean, that's really the moment where it's like, I start to feel more towards, like, Tsukiko made up this initial story, right? So, like, the idea is, like, okay, she made up this story, and then people are, like, running with it. So, like, the boy is a copycat, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, like, this story has escaped what she initially had planned for it. Yeah. Right, because she was just trying to get out of her own situation, and this thing kind of takes a form of its own, right? So that's kind of like where my mind is at this point, where I'm just like, okay, it's just she told a lie, and then it escaped her, right, and now it's affecting others around her. Whether or not
all fictional stories are lies, is that a bad thing, right? Is this just a good one that profits?
Right, exactly.
Marumi's a lie, right?
Yes,
Marumi is a lie.
Dead. Yeah.
God.
So it's that's kind of where I'm sitting at here.
Yeah, at this point.
You know, at this point. Yeah.
And of course we have the rest of the camera peeping and the.
Where are you at this point?
The house. Where am I at this point?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing.
Yeah. You trying to move on? What are your thoughts? Sure.
Well, at this point,
Is Lil Slugger real?
I think. You know, it's funny I posed that question because I definitely wanted to know the answer to that question, but I think in the moment I wasn't so concerned with that question. I was more like, we're in a ride. We're having a good time here. I don't know what's what, and I'm ready to go.
I just want the next episode. Let's go. I spent too much time thinking about it.
Yeah, I think this is what happened at the end of that episode. Well, I mean, I felt awful at the end of the episode because, you know, you get the reveal. And at this point, the storm ruins the house. Right. Like, we get the landslide, and you know, at least there's that for that fucker. But it's still like... And then it ends with her... She gets hit by Lil Slugger, and then she gets amnesia. And is that almost like a way of her being set free? Do you think that is? But also, it's like a sad way of being set free, right? Like, in a weird way, would you say? Well, I guess not.
No, because it's like, what's the alternative?
Yeah, exactly.
There are some things like that you just can't. There is no other reset that you can hit.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's so awful.
She was gonna end up like the grandmother at that point, right? The trauma just would ruin your life. She ran away. She was homeless.
Yeah.
She was not doing well.
And so her not remembering is almost like a way to restart, which is so fascinating.
Very sad.
Sad.
And then he got like a weird proximity amnesia too.
He did. Yeah. He
like,
does.
Yeah.
Do you just get away with that? Really? Like, why do you get a pass and a reset? I wanted him to be traumatized for life.
I'm saying, I wanted much worse for that guy.
Me too.
You know,
he didn't deserve the mercy pass that he got.
So episode 7 is also an interesting one because this is where MHZ. This is the point where Shounen Bat takes a violent turn. Like all the other ones have been kind of like hit and runs, and then like they live to tell the tale. They got hospitalized for a little bit. They remember the trauma. One gets beat to amnesia, but this is finally the episode where it goes even further, and an actual child is killed by Shounen Bat. The news says it's suicide, and it's under police jurisdiction. And then suddenly our two cops who we were just having RPG fun times with 2 episodes ago are suddenly like they have to resign. This was on their watch. And even though it was on their watch, like they saw Shounen Bat too. That was like the crazy thing. They saw him, but he went to the wall. He went through the wall. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of like left with that, right? Like the episode kind of escalates to child gets killed, brutally.
Yes.
That was not like a light little.
No, there's blood. There's blood all the way up to the jail cell door, and these cops are just like, we don't really. I think it's at least an episode till we find out what they're doing. Like they have to resign. We hear about that on the news, and then it's just like done with it. And I think the next episode doesn't even have them at all.
Yeah, because that's where like we really get a switch, right? Because I think the next one is following the 3 that are trying to commit suicide, right?
Yeah, that one's Happy Family Planning.
Happy Family Planning.
Oh, that was probably one of my favorite episodes.
It's so good.
Mine too.
Happy Family Planning rips so hard.
It's such.
God.
Yeah, we were already skipping into it, but
I mean,
I want to say
well.
the really good storytelling technique though is when they can bring you really high and then drop you right back down in the story. So that was a great cadence to follow, and then they bring you right back up, but not that much.
Yeah, not that much. No. Yeah, let's dig into Happy Family Planning. Yeah, obviously you guys have vocalized it's so good. I had to pop off and say it was so good. What is it about this episode that you guys liked? Starting with you, Rob. What do you like about Happy Family Planning?
There's a lot. There's a lot of things about it. One, it's it completely takes you out of like this story that we were in.
Yeah.
Right? Like it is a complete shift. Like you're like, am I watching the same show at this point?
Yep.
Right. And there's a lot of little details in the episode that I really like, right? So like the one I think about the most is like the character shadows.
Yep, they don't cast shadows.
That they don't cast shadows like after a certain point, and you're just like, oh, okay, so this is where this happened.
Yeah.
And then like that kind of slow reveal that these characters have already passed on is just like brilliant. It's like one of the best episodes of like anything of any anime. I fucking adore all of the little storytelling techniques and animation and the writing and stuff with it. It's filled with like little comedic bits as well too.
It is.
Like when they all meet up together and then they find out it's the little girl and they're just like,
it's one of the more heartwarming episodes. It's one of the more heartwarming episodes, which is weird because it deals with the grim like subject matter of suicide. And so, like...
A suicide pact, too.
Suicide pact,
yes. They do it with a group. This is the community. This is the thing that brings them together, is that they all want to die.
Yeah.
On their own. By their own hand.
But then it eventually reaches a point where, right, when the child yells out, "Don't leave me alone."
Yeah.
It eventually reaches that point where they realize, like, wait, in a weird way, this is something to, like, live for. We're here to live for each other. But at that point, they're actually not living, too. So there's a really weird irony to it.
Yeah.
But they do. But they do live for each other after the fact, right? They end up walking together. And then they take that funny photo. And unlike the rest of the episodes, it's the only episode to show the title card at the end. It shows it.
Oh, true, yeah.
Yeah, when they walk by the thing and it says "Happy Family." Planning. So playful. Such probably the most playful episode. And once again, like, how do you guys feel about like Shounen Bat's influence on the episode? Like, because they talk about it once they're in the, what is that place called? Where the hot springs. They like mention it for a little bit because I think it like plays on the news or something.
Yeah.
Oh, they do have that moment.
They do have that moment.
It's insignificant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really the focus.
Yeah.
Right?
Or they've gotten past the point where they don't want to get out by somebody coming to save them, essentially.
Yeah.
Like they're not waiting on life, which is ultimately what everyone else is doing. They're waiting on life to take a turn in the direction that they need it to.
Right.
Like, I'm going to let things work out on their own rather than taking the initiative in your own hands, which is, in this case, it's a very dark way to take
it is very dark. Yes.
But there's something you can appreciate about how it paints the alternative picture, right?
Yeah.
I honestly thought, what is her name? The main character, the girl who made
Tsukiko?
Tsuko. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tsuko.
Yeah.
I thought she was gonna kill herself. You know?
Yeah.
And then when the dad character, the really grimy dude, gets backed into a corner multiple times, he could have also seen that as a way out too.
Absolutely.
So I can't say, I don't think it pretties up the path of choosing death and taking matters into your own hands with suicide, but it says kind of where people were at in that time. Everyone was almost at a point, like, I mean, gosh, Harumi's whole thing. Holy crap, that's easily, when she gets that moment of she cannot lose Maria, is also a moment where you're like, you might have just lost your whole life battle, so what's the point at this point, right? She can't get married happily, comfortably, can't live her life without this always chasing after her. It's a hard thing to admit, but I mean, that's exactly where she was at. And here are some characters we don't actually even need to know why they want to die.
No.
You know, he's old. What does he care at this point?
Yeah.
What about the big dude who just like looks like this jolly giant?
Yeah.
And then a kid.
And then a kid.
The three characters that were like the last that we were expecting.
Yeah.
But that's also the truth too. When someone is really happy, they often hide it really well.
Yeah.
And those are the ones who commit suicide because no one sees it coming.
Yeah. God. Such a good episode. I loved
It's-
that episode.
It's a beautifully sad
Beautiful
episode.
It's a beautiful episode, and it in a weird way it reminds me. So like I think I had mentioned this to Paul, because Paul, it was funny talking with Paul, Jenny. He said the only episode he remembers from Paranoia Agent is this episode.
Really?
That's the only episode he remembers from his
I
childhood.
love that man's ability to lose a memory of everything and rewatch it again for me like it's the first time.
Yeah.
That's
He
amazing.
fascinates himself.
Yeah, exactly. But
I
Live
wish
'em from
I could
scratch,
turn
I'm
that
like,
on and off.
right?
I want that ability.
but I
I'm
think
like,
that
dude-
speaks to the amazingness of this episode.
Mhm,
Is that like Paul can remember specifically this one.
mhm. Yep.
And yeah, it reminds me of there's another film called Harold and Maude, from the, I want to say the 70s, that's about this like old woman, or so it starts off with this kid. He's dressed in all black, and the camera pans out on this lady who's reading a newspaper, and then as it goes into frame, you see this kid has hung himself right in front of this woman. And then the woman is like reading the newspaper, and she turns and is like, "Do you think that's funny, Harold?" And then he like gets down, and you realize this kid is like obsessed with the concept of death. He's always like thinking about like different ways to kill himself. But then eventually he meets this old woman who enjoys the act of living. She's obsessed with life. And the different age gaps and the conversations about living and dying remind me of that movie. it very much reminded me of that movie, and then the charming nature of it. I don't know, what a it's also an out of left field episode, because like you said, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Who are these characters? It doesn't seem like they're related to the case.
Nope. You're just kind of tossed out there, and you're just like, but wait, what about, can we get some, and there's some stuff left on the table here.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, it's insane.
It's
amazing.
so good. So after that, we
get
go
the
back.
Housewives.
We get the Housewives. We get the gossip episode. The gossip episode. And
Yes.
that ending, I think about that ending. That ending is so like, that was the most like Darren Aronofsky ending. That one feels so Black Swan. Because it's less, she's like less concerned about her husband than the fact that she is like, I finally have something to talk about with these women. Like, how did Shounen Bat hit you? And then he's saying ambulance, and he falls out. He falls over, and she's like, how? And I'm just like, this obsession is crazy. But that's also like how it feels like this has driven some people, right?
Mm-hmm.
This like craze.
It's that craze, that feeling of wanting to like belong in this circle of people, right? Because like as they're constantly talking and sharing stories that, I mean, they themselves know are bullshit.
Yeah,
so, like,
they know it's bullshit.
But when the girl tries to give her story or whatever, it's like, oh, that doesn't sound right. You should be making this shit up. And just
You should be a better storyteller since you do this for a living.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like, oh shit, like you're just making her feel bad at every fucking turn. Even though y'all stories are whack ass too. Like,
yeah, it's sad. It's sad because
it's very sad.
Because she also just moved there, right? So I imagine she's feeling this like immense isolation.
Yeah.
And so she's at this point where it's like, well, I'll kind of do anything to fit in because I don't have anyone. I feel so
They're
alone.
not even mildly empathetic to her.
No.
Like,
No,
not
at all.
And that sucks. And some people are in that situation. Like, it's a believable situation. I look at that situation, I'm just like, you know, I don't know. As a person who has like moved around his entire life, I've been in situations where like you just have to talk to someone, you know, and you'll do whatever, like even if it's a one-sided relationship because they're mistreating you. I've been in that relationship.
You're like, at least I'm in a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like sad that you feel like you have to do that.
You ever have that kid in your friend group who just like insisted on hanging out with you guys even though no one really understood why?
That's
Like,
me.
Who invited him?
Oh my god. Asher, no.
He's like, oh, I didn't realize we were talking about my childhood now.
You talking about me? All right, Jenny. So I'm coming over, right? Anyway, yeah. I really empathize with that episode. I mean, there's so many empathetic characters throughout the entire show, but I think I do really empathize with that woman a lot as a person who has like moved around a lot. It's really unfortunate how it ends. That she was driven to such a point, that she can't even like take care of her own husband. But it kind of shows you like how far gone this situation has gone.
Yeah.
It was also a really fun episode, I think, creatively, because every episode is already like a short story, and then this one is just like, now you got 4 short stories in one short story, right?
The shortest of shorts.
Yeah, it's like he had like multiple micro shorts in this one.
Yeah.
And
it's like he's like, all right, these were stories I was gonna put in here, but let me just go ahead
Yeah.
and give the abridged versions.
yeah, almost like that, right? Like almost like these were the stories on the cutting room floor, and they weren't quite as important,
and impactful.
And he's like, why don't we spin them as like old wives' tales? You know?
Yeah.
Oh, literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Like now they're old wives' tales, and it's like that's such a cool like, I guess, concept to do with it. You know, like it speaks to like arguably the creative spirit, and we don't know if that these were like cutting room floor stories, but now people have the idea. Like, well, maybe there's like other stories for me that didn't work out here, and then like they could be a part of something bigger.
And it's cool how it works its way into the overall narrative too, right? Like it's just weaved in there so well, because now you're just seeing how the story of Lil Slugger is just like spreading.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And it's just it's gotten to a point where it's just it's a household name at this point.
Yep.
Right. And anything that goes wrong, it must be Lil Slugger's fault.
Exactly.
Right? Or there's Lil Slugger's story
in some way.
In some way. Yeah. Exactly.
In some way, it's Little Slugger's fault. The next episode after that is Mellow Moromi, which is it's the animation episode.
Yeah.
It's the episode that is an education on animation. Starts off with the baseball player, chibi, like almost like cute chibi thing. And how do you guys feel about the episode? It's a really interesting episode because it is a depiction on the stressful work life of the animator, which is the medium itself, right? And especially there's something off-putting about it, I guess, because it's cheerfully talked about by Moromi. It's like, this is the key animator, this is the director, and this is the line producer, woo! And you know, he's even like drumming sometimes and doing all kinds of wacky stuff. These people are all suffering from work exhaustion. Some of them are straight up dying. Are straight up dying. Like, how do you guys feel about this episode? Starting with Jenny.
I loved the guy who's the shitbag at work.
Is it the one that was like he's never on time and like he's like
the worst
abused
at his job?
Yeah,
but he's also incompetent. Like
he's
he
pretty
messes
incompetent.
up a lot.
Totally.
And then he doesn't so he doesn't redeem himself from that persona of like everyone hates you, and I get it.
Yeah.
And I like how we also still kind of get worried for him though.
Yeah.
When we're like, oh gosh, he might die. Oh gosh, I don't know if I want him to go that way. Like, maybe he sucks at his work or whatever. But he's also abused a lot.
He's abused.
Yes.
Yeah, it's almost like equal portions. You're shitty, but you're also abused. You don't deserve that.
You don't deserve that. You know? Nobody deserves that.
But it's like, we never have a conversation about why all these people are so dedicated to it. They didn't write Moromi.
No.
You know? So what is their investment in this other than it's their job? But is that enough to keep these people going in this industry, right?
Yes.
And especially, how does it feel to be a creator for an anime that actually flops, or a story that flops?
Yeah.
So somebody put money and time and their heart into that, and then when everyone's sitting here going, so I really hated Origami.
Yeah, exactly.
We're like, oh, we're shitting on their their livelihood and also what they dedicated waking up in the morning, working until whatever, and then getting it out in time with a whole team. It's always something I hesitate when it comes to reviews. Like I still want to give them respect for like there was an
Of
effort
course.
here. There's things that I do appreciate.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that thought too. If like if I can't do better, I can't sit there and write a whole
course.
anime. So you know,
It's like-
kudos to you
all the time.
guys.
There's a way that you can like criticize something without like shitting on the people making it, right?
Yes.
And it's like you acknowledge the hard work that it takes people to put this thing together, right?
Right.
But it's like you can be honest and like, well, you guys didn't quite hit it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you should be honest, because then we don't
Yeah,
get good quality
sure.
stuff if we keep trying to sugarcoat it as like, okay, that was pretty great, good job. It's like it's like praising The Room.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, it's true. It's very true. Yeah, it's a really good episode. I've been exhausted enough where I've been tired on drives home from like work.
That's a real feeling.
And so like the kind I think that's, you know, the abuse sucks, but also the like being tired after work thing, you know. I want my sister to watch Guardians 3, and I was like, the only time we're gonna have is on the weekday before I leave for LA next week. And then I was like, you want to see it? And she's like, if I'm not tired after work. And I'm immediately like, fair enough, absolutely get it, you know, like that's the effect it's like very clearly having on him. On top of it, like just raining all the time. It was just raining the entire time on the episode, and especially like since he has to grab these things that shouldn't be wet. And then like him getting he ends up in the car crash, and then someone's still picking up the thing and being like, "Great,
We got it.
we
Secured the bag."
Oh, thank God.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank God!
You know?
Right? And
Did they
that's
criticize
just
like there was like a thumbprint on it too or something? Like
I think
he,
so,
like,
yeah.
marked it up somehow. And they criticized it like, oh, of course.
And,
you
and
did.
he's dead right there. Like so fucked up. It's so fucked up, but also like corporations.
Corporations, like they don't give a damn as long as they have the final product. Fuck the people that make it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a very fascinating look from the animator, and then like almost like a peek into how some animation studios, that's still an issue.
Yep.
That's still the conversation.
100%.
Still the conversation. And for Satoshi Kon to have an episode that is weaved, it fits within the narrative of Paranoia Agent, but also is like targeting this thing, you know.
Everybody that got took out, it was because of Lil Slugger. Don't worry about it.
What a fucking swing.
What insane.
Now we're nearing the end game, episode 11. This is no entry, and this is where we're finally back to our detective. What has he been up to? And it's not revealed very quickly, because I think for the most part, because he looks very different, right? We don't see him in his suit, so he's like a worker. At least it took me a little bit.
I was like, he was in his suit, but he's not as clean cut. He's very disheveled. He's gaunt. That was one thing I really liked, was the detail.
Yeah.
That his face got really gaunt when he was young, and then now he looks like he just aged 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. And we have like Shounen Bat confronting his wife, who goes through their like, it's a thought train. It's like
a really good scene.
It's a really
just
good
like
scene.
this back and like she is talking through
having
this
a conversation with this character, this entity, this concept, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's like her talking through this thing she is going through.
And how much despair she has, and how close it gets pushed to that point of like Shonen Bat could just like off her right now. And he's like, he's so twisted by it, he's like destroying the environment around her. But it like pulls through, and it's like, it's so sweet. Like, it's just like, I don't know, she has like every reason to feel sad, but also it paints a picture of him too so much. When she says, I'm sorry for this thing, and he's like, don't you ever say that again. Don't you ever be sorry. And like him acknowledging that, you know, she feels bad that she can't like get pregnant or like bear a child, and he's like, "You're all I need." It's like, man, oh, gut wrenching, you know, really like pulls at me. Yeah, what do you guys like? Is that one? And they also play with the theme thing. That's still like a thing in anime. The death lilies, the spider lilies.
Oh yeah, always.
They play around with it, right? Like the spider lilies are a symbol of death, and whenever you see it in an anime, someone's gonna die.
Yep.
And then like literally it reaches that point where like Shounen Bat's like huge and ripped now, and then
he has been working out.
and then in the foreground you got the spider lilies, and you're just like, she's gonna die. And then she's like, I'm not gonna die. And the spider lilies just like dip out of frame. They just like leave. And it's almost comedic in the midst of this like kind of very intense confrontation, you know? Well, like, where does it rank in your favorite scenes of all of like Paranoia Agent? This confrontation. Rob?
Yeah,
no nose goes.
No, oh my god. Children, the whole lot of you. It's up there, man. It's definitely like it fights for like that #1 spot, but it's probably like number 2 or 3 up there, right? It's in that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't. It's really the first time where you get like someone that is confronting this thing like head on.
Yeah, it
right.
Is.
And at any point that could have fell through.
At any point, yeah.
At any point, this could have broken down,
and had so many reasons to.
It's so many, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know the way that they portrayed Lil Slugger in that, like the way it's animated and shown is just like stellar. So it came down to just being one of my favorite scenes, just not just of Paranoia Agent. I mean, Paranoia Agent has like a bunch of some of my favorite moments of all time. But like that one is another one that does live rent free in my brain that I think about a lot.
It's also a fascinating confrontation because up to this point, arguably Shounen Bat has destroyed their lives.
Yeah.
Shounen Bat, like at this point, it's a snowball effect. Like, and this was just gonna be where it was gonna end up, because you know he lost his job and you know all that stuff. But then she's still like, "Yet we persist." And then that settling on, I'm gonna get the operation because I want to live.
Gotta face reality.
We gotta face reality. How about you, Jenny? Where's it on your rankings of favorite scenes?
It made me dislike the detective a lot more.
Interesting. Let me hear that.
Yeah. So it actually had kind of. I didn't believe him when he said these things to her. He looked. Maybe it was the camera angles.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the lighting, but the look on his face. I'd seen him look more sincere at other times he'd spoken.
Interesting.
When he talked about chasing down Shounen Bat, how sure he was about that so and so is making it up, and and his convictions against the old lady and all that stuff. I'd seen him speak with more passion at those moments, not when his wife was like, struggling because she just had that miscarriage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he says to her what he's supposed to say.
Yeah. Okay.
And she loved it, and it was everything that she needed, and that was enough for her. But I didn't believe him.
Yeah.
In the delivery of it, the angle too is him saying it like this from down here.
He's not looking directly.
He's not looking directly at her.
Yeah.
Even when he says to her, "Don't ever say that again," or whatever. When she says, "I'm a burden to you," it's like, what is he supposed to say? Married you, all this. It happens, So I don't discredit him for saying that, for saying the right thing.
Yeah.
It was just I don't think he felt it in his heart. Now the moment he redeems himself is when he says, reaches out for her when he sees her.
Yeah, the part where I start crying. Such a good scene.
When she fights to reach him in a place where he's not supposed to be reachable, right?
Right.
And
okay, that's what I was about to ask you. I was like, okay, so very valid. I completely see that in what you were just telling me here. And then I was gonna ask, but how about by the end of it, by episode 13?
Most characters don't actually have that redemption moment either, right? He actually gets one.
He gets one.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that once we get to that. This episode is centered around his wife and the ultimate decision to keep living by having that operation.
Yeah.
Now we're at the penultimate episode, Radar Man, the Batman episode.
Radar Man.
where we get our other detective character. He has at this point come back. He is saying things like imagination nurtures him. The concept, the fear of Shounen Bat makes him stronger, and we've seen that throughout like the series up to this point. At this and it's really fascinating because everyone's starting to get lost in their dream worlds, and Radar Man has to follow a bunny girl, and so it's like this weird Alice in Wonderland thing.
References directly to it, right? With the drink me.
Yep.
And yeah,
It's
a lot of imagery to it.
Were you guys expecting Satoshi Kon to somehow combine Batman and Alice in Wonderland? Because it's also very clear a Batman thing, because
again, describing anime badly.
because when he jumps on the truck, there's a bat literally on the side of the door, and I was like, this goof ass, like,
it's so funny.
It's really funny, and he it's interesting because eventually he calls Tsukiko and he says that he's solved the mystery, right? How do you guys feel about this episode? At this point, like, Shounen Bat has become like much more monstrous. Now it's like a monster. It's not just like a kid skating around. How do you feel about this being the penultimate episode? Let's start with you, Jenny, since I'm not gonna let you nose your way out of this one.
No, I'm happy to go first on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how is this the second to last episode? Like, there's so much just got like added and new.
Yeah.
Like, is he actually delusional, or is it actually, really happening? And this is where he's just accepted, and that's his character. He has to be the one who can just accept what seems crazy as reality. But that was always his personality this whole time, right? He was the one who was capable of doing that. It was his superpower to see things for what they at least appeared to be, and then accept the possibility that it was completely legitimate, and that's okay. To break the rules. It's okay to break the rules.
He had the fucking the eyes. He has the bloodborne eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, as a penultimate, it definitely just kind of like a happy family planning. It felt like a different show suddenly. His outfit looked like it was from the wrong, like, an 80s anime. Even when it like changes into like the actual form, I guess, he goes from wearing his Goodwill buys to
Goodwill buys
into an actual like 80s comic hero look, which is all shiny and stuff. I'm like, it still looks absolutely ridiculous. He's a good-looking character early on too. So like,
exactly.
He's gone through some things.
But it is traumatic to lose your job, to be fair. Like, one that you spent your entire career path going down, and now you'll never be able to come back. You can't. It's a fall from.
And they were so genuinely invested in the Shonen Bat case, right?
Yes.
So
for a lot of reasons.
For a lot of reasons.
Even when it didn't start with a murder.
Exactly.
It was just assault. With no robbery, no rape or anything like that. It stayed, and just like they all got hit with a baseball bat, which hurts like hell. So still a very bad assault, seriously injured, of course. But they were very invested in this, and then it bit them in the butt for not solving it in time. Almost like a writer or a creator for an anime doesn't get their stuff done on time. They're done. That's it. They're just done. And they just die. They don't hit their goal. They die. So it was weird, but it definitely carried the right motifs. And it was such an interesting decision to make him do that, to go to those lengths. But that's how I felt.
How about you, Rob?
Yeah, very, very similar feeling. It's a very weird episode.
It is weird.
It is very, very shift in its presentation, much like when we did the Holy Land stuff.
Holy Land is almost like a foreshadowing to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is where we were going with this character the whole time, right? Like he's willing to believe in it and follow it where it goes. And when he meets up with like Tsukiko's dad, and he gets the full story, right?
Yep.
But then it's still like in that Toonie phase at the end where he takes the bat and he like sheathes it at the end or whatever. I'm just like, what are you doing, sir?
Yeah.
Like, sir, please. This is serious. At times it feels a little tough to follow, right? Because you're in this like weird delusional space, right? But it makes sense at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
It's weird, just a weird episode that somehow.
It's a very strange episode. It does come together in the classic Satoshi Kon way.
Yeah, exactly.
It puts
like,
you...
where are we going with this? But you get to the end and you're like, all right.
It puts you in this delirium.
Good storytelling. He got us ready for it.
Yes.
And I actually was totally like, he gets it. Like he gets what is the correct answer, and he realizes I can't explain this to anybody else.
Yeah.
He doesn't even try to explain to his partner. He's just like,
nope. He goes straight to the source.
Yep.
The start. Honestly, the start.
To the beginning.
Which is perfect for the final episode.
Mm-hmm.
It leads us to the finale, which is the full circle. Now we're centered on we're centered on Muromi, we're centered on Tsukiko, and we're centered on the detective. And at this point, like, the paranoia has kind of like personified itself in this black ooze. It's very like the Blob horror movie classic. It's just overtaking everyone. And it's a fascinating look at how other people can also save each other from these delusions. The people who just like are reaching out and trying to help each other as well. Even if they're not physically there. Like, even just the thought, right? And that's what happens with the detective and his wife. And the moment he finally breaks free of his reality, it's really tragic, because I think at that point it's too late, right?
Yeah.
But at least in this dream world, which the tragedy is that it's not reality, she got to say goodbye, right? And then also Tsukiko confronting the trauma, like the loss of this animal, who was also named Muromi, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly where the name came from and everything.
Yeah, that's where the name came from. For this creation that is so beloved to come from something so traumatic, it's a lot. It's really a lot.
That's the root of Wizard of Oz, right? It's a whole root. It's rooted in trauma and the loss, and that you wish you could have rewritten the story.
Wait, explain to me.
So Wizard of Oz is,
because I love Wizard of Oz.
It has a start. The start is a true story. A girl was caught in a tornado while at home alone, and her aunt and uncle were out, and they found her body like underneath the rubble and everything. So they wrote this. I don't know who wrote the story, but I believe
Ash's brain is exploding.
Yeah.
Somebody
Sorry.
maybe like took this like news story and rewrote it into a creative outlet where they rewrite that she actually goes to a fantasy place, that she goes to this wonderful
Yeah,
story.
she gets isekai'd.
Yeah, and her whole thing is to come home, right? That's she's working. She is trying really hard to come home. She loved being home. She didn't die in
I did not
pain
know
and fear and terror.
This.
She has her dog with her who she loves. And she experiences friends that she meets, fantastical friends that are there to help her, and she helps them too, and she still gets a chance to grow.
That's so sad.
And that's the thing that was taken away from her in this tragedy, right?
Yeah.
And that she would get, some magical shoes, probably some that she was like looking in the window like before she died or something. That she was like, I'll never get to have those. Well, she does. She gets them, and they're actually magical, and they'll take her home. But that's where, like, Marumi is not that crazy of a story where someone takes a tragedy and turns it into something that makes them feel better. It's a coping thing.
My brain is exploding right now. because the shoes she specifically wants are red shoes, right? Are you familiar with the movie Red Shoes?
Mm-mm.
So the movie Red Shoes is one of the inspirations for Black Swan. It's loosely based on the tale about this like girl who wanted like dancing shoes, and this like god gave her like dancing shoes, but they make her dance forever, and she can't like take them off, and eventually she like dances herself to death.
Oh yes, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Yes, yes.
Yeah, but there's also like a distinct connection here with that like dancing disease or the dancing concept and delirium, because one of the things that have been compared to Paranoia Agent. Are you familiar with Dancing Mania? Are either of you familiar with Dancing Mania?
No, what's that?
I knew this was gonna happen, so I pulled up a Wikipedia article.
The
How
eyebrow.
did we were set up this whole time.
So Dancing Mania.
You started it.
Dancing
I didn't know I
Mania,
was playing into this.
also known as the Dancing Plague or Choreomania, was a social phenomenon that occurred primarily in mainland Europe between the 14th and 17th century. It involved groups of people dancing erratically, sometimes thousands at a time. The mania affected adults and children, who danced until they collapsed from exhaustion and injuries. One of the first major outbreaks was in Aachen in the Holy Roman Empire. So there are like multiple instances affecting thousands of people across several centuries. Dancing Mania was not an isolated event, which is interesting because, right, they've said Shounen Bat, this isn't the first time in the beginning, Shounen Bat has happened before, as well as documented in contemporary reports. It was nevertheless poorly understood, and remedies were based on guesswork. Often musicians accompanied dancers due to a belief that the music would treat the mania, but this tactic sometimes backfired by encouraging more to join in. There is no consensus among modern-day scholars as to the cause of dancing mania. Several theories proposed range from religious cults being behind the processions to people dancing to relieve themselves of stress and put the poverty of the period out of their minds. It is speculated to have been a mass psychogenic illness in which physical symptoms with no known physical cause are observed to affect a group of people as a form of social influence. A lot of people have compared those real-world events to Paranoia Agent.
That makes sense. That tracks.
It tracks. It's crazy, right? And Red Shoes, inspired by those events, a Dancing Mania, and then Wizard of Oz, which also has Red Shoes, and then this like, I don't know, it's crazy. I'm blowing my mind right now. I'm doing the Charlie Day thing.
Yeah. He has
connect the dots. I swear, it all adds up here to Paranoia Agent. This is the Paranoia Agent all along. You know. I did not know that. I did not know that Wizard of Oz was based on that story. That is, especially since it compels me because it is one of my favorite films. Wizard of Oz is genuinely one of my favorite movies ever made.
The original one with the Judy Garland?
Yep.
Okay.
It sure is. The black and white and the transfer to color. And then I also wrote an essay on Inglourious Bastards is Wizard of Oz. Have I ever talked to you about that? It's like it's like a fairy tale. It says like once upon a time in Nazi occupied France, and at the end it has like a giant face, kind of like the wizard, and it's like revealing to you that it's a fantasy. It's really it's a long complicated essay that's like really silly that I wrote for school, but it's also like this is just the Wizard of Oz, you know, it's crazy Asher stuff. Once again, doing the Charlie Day thing. Like, I swear to you, like Wizard of Oz. And...
You should have left off at the last revelation.
But I digress.
All right, so edit this part out in post.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
But I digress.
Cool.
Yeah. For the final episode, to be rooted in such tragedy, it's a curious place to be. Both of you. Do you feel that Paranoia Agent is ultimately a cynical show or a hopeful show?
I don't know how I would answer that.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Which is
don't-
part of the fun of Satoshi Kon. He can go either way.
Neither.
It's neither.
I think hopeful.
You think hopeful?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But talk through it. Let's talk through.
So I had to look at the definition of cynical.
Oh, yeah.
And it's where you distrust sincerity, integrity of mankind, basically, or humanity.
Yeah.
And yeah, we literally talked about all of that happening and how honest it was. It's ugly. It's, you get crappy people.
It's gonna happen, right?
But they get a reprieve. They get a chance. They get to be redefined, recreated, reset, some of them. And life kept going on. It's like the show kept going on regardless. And it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Even the ones that ended in death.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the kid.
You can't speak for the kid, but certainly, arguably, right? Like family happy.
Well, maybe, yeah, for sure. Happy family planning. But also, now I'm thinking about it, maybe the kid was so delusional in a fantasy world because he was so unhappy with his life.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, that sounds right to me.
That tracks, yeah. And so this was, I think it's hopeful. There's a lot of stories of the trauma being the root, too, of a lot of unhappiness. And everyone had to go through it, though. And they got out of it, or they found some way to deal with it. Like the grandmother did not seem unhappy being homeless.
No.
The old man, he's a character we actually haven't talked about at all.
No, and that's what I was gonna ask at the very end. I was gonna be like, what do we think of the old man? The space Mozart.
He was definitely a fun character. I think there was a lot to say too about forgetting the lessons that we've learned early on, because we tried something different.
Yeah.
And I think the older characters, like the old characters in the story, are the reminder of having forgotten the lessons that we received when we were young.
Yep.
And then they're still going to reiterate them. They're like a grandmother or grandfather trying to tell you, guide you, but you literally didn't hear them the first time around, or any time thereafter. Now to the point where they are kind of withering away. We can't forget those lessons that they gave us early on. And so a lot of, I think that's the hopeful part, though, right? We always have to keep learning. He was apparently like the grandmaster in some of their minds.
He was, yeah.
And then, but also out of his mind.
Out of his mind. He was also out of his mind, but he was writing that final equation.
Yeah. But
he never stopped learning. He never stopped learning, I think.
Correct. And he also could adjust to whatever was going on. So he had to play this role for this character. He played this role for that character. He adjusted. So did she, the wife of the cop.
Yeah.
Or former cop. She adjusted too. She was used to being the burden. Then she became his savior.
Yeah. Love that.
So a lot of the way they ended, all were on hopeful notes.
Yeah. I think the show is ultimately hopeful too. Ultimately.
Yeah.
It's very real about the hope. It's very like, this is how things are, but
it's like there's hope. It's not always going to turn out great, though.
No.
Yeah, no.
It isn't.
Like, I think that's what I appreciate about it, because it's like it is very real with that stuff. Like, there's hope out there, but it's not always going to be
glad
good.
the house crashed down.
Glad. Yeah, that. But even like in like the final shots of the show, and you see that like society is still going through these things, right? Like people are all still stressed out, like being work exhaustion, like. This can happen again, and it probably will happen again.
Oh, will.
Right? Yeah. So it's like, it's very real about that stuff.
Muromi takes form in many things.
Things, yes. Like we were talking about the Paranoia Agent, as it were. It's like it can be anything.
It could be anything.
So I see how there are hopeful messages here, but it's not all hopeful. It's like, this can be tragic too.
If hope is your hero, if hope is your hero, it's not going to always come in the form that you're expecting it to.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Like Radar Man.
We love Radar Man here. Let's go, Radar Man! Woo!
The hero we needed.
I'm the
Did
hero
we really
that
want
Gotham, that Gotham
That's
deserves.
what I wanted.
Not the
At
one I
least
wanted.
Batman looks cool.
Radar Man is not the hero that we wanted, but he was the hero that we deserved.
Yeah, no.
That's incredible. That's so good. All right, I don't have a crazy game for y'all. I do like the episode names, so I figured we'd do another word association game, where I read you the episode titles, and then you tell me an anime that comes to mind, and we can pair them up with that because the episode titles are so different. So I'll alternate between you two. Do you guys remember who I started with last time? Probably not, right?
I think
Jenny.
it was Jenny.
Okay, so then we'll start.
Music instruments. Stuff.
That's right. So then we'll start with Rob this time.
I meant Rob went first last time.
Too late.
And there's no limit to which anime you could pick. What anime do you think of with the title Enter Lil Slugger?
Little Busters.
Little Busters.
There's.
Is it only because of Lil?
No.
Oh, okay.
Asher, watch Little Busters. Jenny, you might not like Little Busters.
But Asher, watch Little Busters.
There are themes in Little Busters I think you would like, but I don't think you would enjoy the act of watching it.
Fantastic.
Anyway.
Jenny, The Golden Shoes.
Kakeki Shoujo.
Kakeki Shoujo?
Yeah,
Kakeki
Shoujo.
Soju?
I think that's what they called the first time too.
Well, may I ask why?
It sounds like a performance thing.
Oh, it does.
So I can imagine like the rite of passage to the stage to the main characters. You have to wear the golden shoes or whatever.
Interesting. Rob, Double Lips. These titles are so fun.
They're so stupid.
Good.
Kiss Him, Not Me.
Oh, perfect. I love that.
Oh.
All right. Jenny, A Man's Path.
Ultimate Muscle.
Oh!
That counts as an anime.
It definitely does.
Strong.
Okay, cool.
That's really funny. I love that.
Just ridiculous and...
Well, it is ridiculous.
So good, man.
Rob, The Holy Warrior.
The Sunday Without God.
Whoa, I've never even heard of that.
It's not particularly great. It has an ending theme song
What a
that I
shame.
really like.
That's
though.
a good title.
What a shame. Yeah, Sunday Without God.
Yeah,
Interesting.
some chair jerking moments in it, but overall, not a great watch.
All right, Jenny. Fear of a direct hit.
Damn.
Suzume.
Ooh.
That was a direct hit.
It's not as direct as it gets, my guy.
Rob, MHZ. Megahertz.
Paranoia Agent.
That's funny.
He did say there were no limitations.
There were no
said
limitations.
no
I
limits.
did say that.
Go
I
on.
did say that.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny, Happy Family Planning.
A Spy X Family.
Aww,
Ooh.
that's perfect.
That's a good one.
Rob, ETC. I like that he gets the two three-letter ones, etc.
What's that anime? It's called C. Something about money and soul. I forget the whole title, but ETC reminds me of like a financial thing, right? Like it's a cryptocurrency or something, and that's an anime that's completely about like finances.
I'll type in. Is it C as in ocean?
C as in ocean.
No, or is it the letter C?
The letter C.
Okay.
The letter C. I had to think about what you were saying.
Sorry, my bad.
Oh, SEA.
Rob's
brain.
confusion was so funny to me.
That's gonna be a new reaction. Anyway,
Holy
the
cow.
letter C, and then I'll type in. I'll write down soul, and then hopefully we can find out the anime.
I pulled it up. It's
Okay.
C, the money of soul and possibility control. That can't be the craziest title you've ever heard.
That's really funny. Jenny, Mellow Moromi.
Oh, Agretsuko.
Oh, Agretsuko.
Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go.
I love that. Rob, no entry.
Attack on Titan.
That's funny. Our favorite anime. Jenny, Radar Man. Her favorite character.
Radar Man. I wish the Harley Quinn show was an anime.
Oh, so good.
Because he reminds me of Kite Man.
He is like Kite Man.
Wow. Yes.
He's a little bit. He's a doofus, yeah.
Yes.
Let me think. Oh my god, only like cartoons that are not animes are running through my head. Like Steven Universe came up next.
Because clearly it's doing its job. It's so American inspired with all the Batman stuff. It's only making you think of
Marvel and
American media.
American media. Man, that's hard. I want to pick one of like the really weird ones from like WB or something. Does Powerpuff Girls count as an anime?
There is a Powerpuff Girls anime, yeah.
I haven't seen it though. I'll say Powerpuff Girls.
Powerpuff Girls.
It's like a little Mojo Jojo-esque.
And then Rob, final episode. This episode is just called Final Episode.
Death Note.
You know?
Yeah, you know.
The most final story.
The most final of final episodes. Yeah.
Alright. That was a good one.
That was fun. I like that one.
I'm glad we really liked Paranoia Agent. It was very rich conversation. I feel like I learned so much. Really took in a lot of information there.
Yeah, good pick. A lot of people, when I mentioned we were watching Paranoia Agent, got really excited for us. Because that's really popular, and I can see why.
Yeah,
it's
that
a fun
intro
one.
had me having a lot of questions.
Yeah.
but then once I got it, I was like, yeah, this is a really good one, though.
This is a really good one, yeah. And not all of them will be good ones.
Oh boy.
I'm curious as to if this next one will be a good
Rob
one.
proved that one correct.
I'm very curious as to if this next one will be a good one. Because it's my turn.
Oh, it is your turn. Oh boy.
And
here we go.
Continuing
Brace yourself,
tradition,
y'all.
I'm picking one that
boy.
I have not watched,
Oh.
but researched with the sheer intent to pick one in genres that neither of you like. So,
Buy 5, get 1 free deal.
I'm
Okay.
Why is he like this?
I'm introducing a harem anime to our mix.
Okay.
Which one?
And that harem anime, and this is really funny because Rob asked me about this earlier.
Huh?
Little did he know, and I was fully planning to pick it. All routes lead to doom. My life as a villainess is our next anime. We looked at the manga and everything in the store. We were like in the light novel section. I was like, haha, that's a funny title. All routes lead to doom. My life as a villainess. And then he was like, that's stupid. And I said, what if that's the next anime I pick? And then he was like,
You didn't see the foreshadowing, Rob?
and then we just kind of walked away. And then I went in the corner and was like,
he in my defense, he picked out a lot of manga in that store and was like, haha, what if we watch this? So I knew it probably would have been a harem. He has been hyping up trying to kill us both. Man. All right. Is it 12 episodes?
yeah, so it has 2 seasons. I believe they're either 12 or 13, both of them. With the second season being titled All All Routes Lead to Doom, My Life as a Villainess, X.
Classic.
So,
the big old X.
The big old X at the end. I won't be surprised if I end up watching the second season, but yeah, we'll watch that. We'll watch that first season. That's your assignment, and maybe you'll be surprised. Maybe you won't. Maybe you can't stand it. You'll be mad at me forever. But I'm excited. At the very least, I'm excited for me. Let's go.
Yeah. Yep. Uh-huh.
Oh god.
So
did you just look it up?
Yeah.
Look at Jenny's face. That's another reaction.
Why would he do this? Why would he do this?
It's also great because it's coming off of Paranoia Agent, which I know is good. So I'm very curious if it's just like gonna just get shit on. Let's see.
Yeah. I have my pick for next one also, and it's also going to be maybe they won't like this one at all.
Really?
Curious.
I'm surprised.
Curious.
Yeah.
Very excited.
I needed to have my fair share of that too, so let's do it.
Not everything could be great, and we're not gonna like everything that everyone picks. That's just how it is.
There's fun in that.
And we might not even like the ones that we pick. Or at least that's how because I'm picking ones that sometimes I don't watch, right? Maybe I don't like this. Doubt it. press X for doubt. I
doubt it'll happen, but it would be really funny if me and Jenny really dig it, and you were just like, "Man, I hated this."
Man, I didn't like this. That's like there is a universe where that happens, and I think that's really funny.
We ain't in it.
I'm almost guaranteed we're not in it, but it would be really fucking funny.
It'll be really fucking funny. So with that being said, let's say our goodbyes and our plugs. Jenny, do you have anything you want to plug, and where can people find you on social media?
So we're planning for my band to do a show at a bar that's opening in Jacksonville.
Oh, which bar?
Nakama. Leaderboard. The second location's opening.
Oh, hell yeah, that's hype.
Let's go.
So, we won't be playing the exact opening day or anything like that, or weekend, but we will be playing it really close to when they do open on the weekend. Just kind of set up in a parking lot kind of a thing with a tent over us, and
yeah, that'll be sick.
Sweating our balls off.
Yeah.
But
I'll be there.
We'll be.
And
then, yeah, so we might be taking a little bit of a break with Steve Might Cook. We're going to restructure some things.
Okay.
And redesign the show a little bit more. But yeah, more to come on that. But that's pretty much it for me.
Hell yeah. What about you, Rob?
You can find me on Twitter at Zenosuke, Znosuke, where I am currently addicted to Idol Showdown, which is a new fighting game that came out featuring VTubers.
I'm excited to play that.
It was designed by a very small team. It was only like 2 or 3 people that did this fan game, and it is more like feature complete than a lot of like fully priced titles. It's legitimately like a really good fighting game before it is just like a fan service kind of thing.
Yeah. Which is
so
sick.
I've been addicted. It's really sick. So I've been addicted to that and kind of like talking about that and stuff like that. We do the JSB Gamescast every Wednesday. Well, we record on Sundays. We upload it on Wednesdays. Which I'll be recording tonight. We're probably going to talk a lot about Idol Showdown.
Hell yeah.
I know everybody's been kind of playing it, as well as Omega Strikers.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. We love that.
Hit with everybody. So stay tuned for that. Outside of that, that's it.
That's it. That's what he says. For me, you can find me on this channel, where I'll stream other things like Paranormal Site. Haven't got back to it because of just I'm satiating my immense wanderlust right now because I'll be in LA next week. But you can also find me on Twitter under the same handle. You can find me on Instagram on the same handle. You can also find the JSB Anime Twitter account and Instagram account there too. You can see all of that at the ending screen. You'll see the locations for each. Other than that, I think that's it. I think I'm ready to end this rather lovely episode and then do that thing where that one character invites themselves over and goes over to Jenny's house. So yeah, y'all take care. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Everyone wave bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.